Shirt show. All right, let's go.
Shirt show! Talking shirt! Shirt show! Talking shirt! Shirt show! Talking shirt! Shirt show! Shirt, man! All right! Episode 152 of Shirt Show. We're talking with Jeff from Redwall in Wisconsin. Let's go!
Yeah. So can you hear me fine?
I can hear you fine. Your voice is very masculine and it's soothing to my soul. Check.
You like that? You like that, Daddy? You being a good boy?
No, actually, I don't think.
Good.
I think you went bad boy.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you, man?
I'm good. I feel refreshed and rejuvenated, and
Okay.
I'm ready to hang out with you
Okay.
and our beautiful guest.
I know. So we happy hump day. It's
Yeah.
It's the day of hump. And I will also add I thought it was like the normal time. And so I was ready to go. Like I was
wondering because I got your text with like the listener question or the quick takes, and I was like, he knows we're recording at 4:00, right?
Nope. I was all like the foreplay was done. I was primed and ready. Getting ready. I was actually signed in, ready to go. And then I got a call like 3 minutes before it was supposed to go on from Christina and said, I answered the phone. I was like, uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
But it all worked out, didn't it?
Yeah. No, it worked out. So I heard you had some visitors yesterday or the day before?
Yesterday, Golden Press, Jonathan and Jared popped in.
Oh yeah? How'd that go?
Yeah. Well, like usual, I gave them a tour of the shop and they were like,
wow, what a shithole.
yes, exactly. Those words. And I'm like, I know it. Everybody says it, but
yeah,
it makes me it inspires me to make it less of a shithole.
Was that his first time being there?
Yep.
I thought they'd been there before.
No, first time. They were virgins, and
nice.
It was a maiden voyage through the shop, and we talked, about.
I feel like I haven't seen or heard anything from them in a while.
Well, get ready, because they were traveling to the beautiful state of Kansas to film, or actually to do they're going to a high school there to talk about screen printing and inspire kids, to want to join our industry. And Jared, being the videographer extraordinaire, God, right. Yeah, we're on the same fucking wave, bro. We're safe. We're surfing the same. That's lame. It's a lame thing to say. We're on the same wavelength.
Our chakras are aligned.
Yeah, there you go. Well, they are going to make a video about it, and so stay tuned.
Nice.
So afterwards we went out to grab a bite to eat, and we talked, shop, we talked life, we talked kids, we talked,
all the good stuff.
Health. Yeah. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Missed you. Wish you were there.
Yeah, me too.
Last time, I want to say the last time we were with those guys, we ate
Mexican.
at that. Yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It was delicious.
It was outside, kind of. It was like an inside patio.
Yeah. So you had to go in the restaurant, and then you were still in the restaurant, but it had no roof.
Right.
That's the outside inside I think you're referring to.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Mm-hmm.
For the people listening to this episode, there's going to be another one in between. But I don't know about you, but I got a lot of responses from the 150 episode where apparently I went deep. We went deep.
We did.
So thank you for everybody for reaching out and saying that you connected on it and that you liked it. And I don't know. I didn't realize what it was when we were doing it.
Yeah. So
like we were just talking about feelings, real feelings.
Yeah. And I think that everybody has feelings. So
they do.
Yeah. So idiots. And so maybe they liked hearing, oh yeah, Dylan has feelings too, and so does Andy. So yeah, it was nice. We got a lot of messages and text and all those sort of things, and felt good.
Yeah.
To get that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have something new to show you.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
I hope Zoom picks that
Ooh, a
up.
fresh knife.
It's a bug out. So it's a bug out.
Nice.
It has. Check out that. I got shirt show orange.
You got that hunter orange on there.
There, you can pick that. It looks a little like you can tell.
It's very nice. What happened to your last carry?
This one is the last one was a little heavy, and this one is crazy light. In fact, all the reviews, not all, some of the reviews on I got this at Bass Pro, and some of the reviews, it's a Bass Pro exclusive. That's what the orange blade.
Nice.
Some of the reviews were like, "This knife is too light." I'm like, "Perfect. That's what I want." Thank you for that negative review. And then there was lots of positive reviews about.
I don't know if you have this problem or not, but I do. Where it's because I have that Hank Hill ass. It's right here, the picture of my Hank Hill ass.
Yeah.
Where I can't like have heavy shit in my pants, or my pants will fall off.
I mean, we are definitely brothers because yeah, same here. And I'm trying to work that ass though. I do the squats.
I'm hoping that all this walking is going to build me some kind of cheeks, but I got none, dude. It's like literally any weight in my pants, the pants are coming off. So if you want to get me to get my pants off, you just add a couple coins in there and right to my knees.
Yeah. Maybe we should get implants.
You know what, dude? That would be ridiculous. Imagine me with ass implants.
Yeah. I mean, that has to be uncomfortable. Like when you sit down, no,
or maybe it's amazing.
Good. Or maybe it's amazing. Yeah. So I don't know. Enough about cheeks. I want to show you this.
These are 6 shirt collar shirts.
Yeah. No. Oh, I do have those. But if you have, if you're listening and not watching, I'm sorry. This will be quick. We have this new. I ordered these craft paper tag things. Look at that.
Ooh, fancy.
They have these little clips.
You're labeling your samples.
Yeah. So I went with our best stuff, our number one sellers. There's only like 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 different things. I got new wooden hangers, and
nice.
I go like this.
So
boom.
Good.
And
Love
Megan, who works here, she does calligraphy, and she did that. Like, look at that.
It's fancy.
That's beautiful.
So for those listening, he's got a shirt on a hanger, and he's got a little tag that says what the shirt is.
Yeah.
And it's a good idea. Yeah. That's pretty much what ours do. But I had SNS make the tags.
Oh, so you mean like and it shows, maybe the tag shows all the different color options and things like that?
Yeah. So like if you contact your rep and say, hey, I want this and this and this as a sample, they can tag it with it's like a little plastic pouch. And then it has basically the info you would find in the specs on the shirt. Like it's all like nicely printed out and in there with all the color options and the sizing and the weights and all of that stuff. So that when customer looks at it, you're like, oh, it comes in green and it's this shirt.
Well, I wish I could show you, but right now I have on our top rack, we have every Gildan, and I ordered it all the same color. So I have a Gildan 5,000, 2,000, 8,000, 64,000, 65,000. If you don't know what the 65,000 is, it's a mid
the new
weight
soft.
Yeah. Then I got like the 18,000, the 18,500. I don't know, maybe another one. And it's just all the same color. It's all on these hangers. It's all labeled clearly. And those are our like Gildan rack. And then I did the same thing with Bella Canvas. Yeah. All the same color, but different than Gildan's.
I have the exact same thing, the exact same setup.
We have the exact same ass. We have, I think we have the same ball girth. What I mean by that is the ball of my foot.
Oh, I was going to say, if you want to get into that conversation, let's do it, because that's an episode in itself.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We also are having a sidewalk sale. So if you're in the neighborhood, I know this episode probably doesn't come out for 2 weeks or whatever, but if you're in the neighborhood, come on by.
Won't be here.
Yeah.
Are you legit question? Not trying to bust your balls or anything, but like, is that working? Because I've never done one. Like, are people stopping by and just buying the blanks?
Yes.
That's cool.
You can bust my balls anytime you want. But
no, it's not a bust at all. Like, I'm actually curious if that works, because I always end up with a shitload of extra shirts at the end of the year that people send you, extras and whatever else. And it's like, I never know how to get rid of them. So I've been donating them to the school. But
yeah, so there's a couple of
sidewalk
things.
sale sounds cool.
I think we've talked about this before. You could either print your logo on it, right? So you can grab a bunch of shirts, print your logo on it. You can use them as test prints. You can donate them to Salvation Army or Goodwill or school or anything like that. Or what we decided to do, which we did maybe 2 or 3 years ago, is just have the sidewalk sale. And what's interesting is that people come in, buy some shirts, and then also they're in our shop that they haven't been in here before.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, oh, cool. Like, I didn't even know this place was here. And so I think it's...
I always thought this dilapidated building was a meth lab. And then I walked in and realized it's ShireCon.
Like, and they're like, still, it's a shithole, but hey, you guys print shirts here? Cool.
but good for you. And then
right. But they, so I figure we'll do this for 2 weeks, you know, because we're selling, I would say, in the 50 to 80 shirts a day.
Nice.
And look, it's cheap stuff. So like, we did it like this. We did t-shirts are $2, polos are $4, and fleece are $6. But all of this stuff is just sitting over there, and it's accumulated over probably a year and a half or whatever. And we got to turn it over, because otherwise it starts to just get old, right? And fade and who knows what. And so I think that what we'll do, and we just plugged it in as a product, sidewalk sale, $2. And so you can just select it easily, and it's $2. You know what I mean? It's its own thing. And so you can track it. So you can look back and say, oh, we sold, $3,000 worth of whatever. And so we're going to do that. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, we'll probably half price all that. And then whatever's left, that's what goes to Goodwill or the Salvation Army or
nice.
Whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool.
And it's, so far so good. Yeah. We only had one person that was a problem, because they came in and they chose some polos out there. And then they said, I want to get, how much to get these embroidered. And we're like, we told him, he's like, cool. And then he brings out a picture of his like cars or something.
That's the worst.
And so you have to kind of just explain that, oh, well, here's the issue with it. But I mean, that's okay.
Which is funny, because we've done a few car shows, like live printing at car shows, and it's our number one top of the list now to refuse. We're like, we're not doing car shows, because every dude walks up to the live printing booth, can see you have 4 screens set up. Like, these are the only 4 designs we're printing. They always walk up and they're like, can I get a shirt with my car on it? And they're like, I will fucking stab you in the neck. Like,
yeah, that seems like an overreaction, but I understand the upset.
No, instantly furious.
Yeah. Well, good to see you. Glad we're here. This is fun.
Me too. Yeah.
We had the epic Frank button that came out Monday.
I can't. I feel like this is like a Tenacious D situation, where they say this is the greatest song, but it's not the actual song that they played. This is a tribute. Like, I'm just going to have to tribute everyone to that, because I'm never going to be able to top it.
I know. I don't know what to say to Frank about it, other than we'll do our best. Like, we will try, but you may be disappointed. It's sort of like I saw Blink 182, some reels from Coachella, and I'm like, like, I don't know if it's hard to. This
band's not as good as they used to be.
No, I was like, it must be sucky to have like a hit song or songs when you're like 19, and then now you're 45 or whatever, and you've got to play that shit, and you don't really connect maybe with it.
Right. Like, what's my age again?
Yeah. And so it's like, that if you don't play that song, they're going to throw shit at you.
Yeah.
And so
I'm not going to lie. Like, I was a big fan. I still am. But it's one of those things that's like, everyone saw the Coachella thing and was like, oh my God, they're playing again. And it was like, yeah, that's cool. But like, if you didn't know this band, like when they came out with their new song when Tom was back, like if you didn't know this band at all and it was like a new fresh song that you've never heard before, that song sucks. It's not like the song fucking sucks. I'm sorry. Like it's cheesy as fuck.
Yeah, I don't know. And they've all had their like solo careers and they've all and how many like 17,000 times you've got to play that song the same way. And so you're like, oh, I'm going to change it up. And everybody's like, what the fuck's with that? You know,
like he held this a little longer than he should have.
Yeah, but you know why? Because he can't stand playing that shit again.
Hey, I'm happy they're back. Long story short.
Oh yeah. Cheers to Blanc. Cheers to Blink 182.
Blanc 183.
Yeah. Woo. Frank. It all starts with a screen, and whether it's new stretches or restretches, Frank and his team do it the best. To find out more, go to graphicscreenfashion.com, FFFFF.
Rank.com.
Or
greatfuckingscreens.com.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest fucking screens in the whole world.
Without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
You know who I haven't talked to for a while and who I miss?
Alex?
Where's he at?
I've been talking to him.
You have?
Mm-hmm.
You trying to plan?
We're trying to plan a trip.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for the invite. Anyway, so cleaning screens is no fun, but EasyWay makes it way more funner. Their line of eco-friendly chemicals will make reclaiming screens a whole lot easier. Check them out at easyway.com. EasyWay.
It's the easiest way.
Mm-hmm. So kind of bothered by planning a trip without me, but it's cool.
Pretty sure you were asked, but you know.
Yeah. I'm planning a trip. Yeah, I'm planning a trip. Yeah, with a bunch of your friends. It'll be cool. If you or your art department could use
I'm planning a trip with a bunch of your friends. It'll be cool. Fucking dork.
Let's start this one over. Hold on. All right. If you or your art department can use some love, then you need to go to 1-900-HOTStuff.com and get in touch with Nick or Lucas.
Or Matt. Or Sally. Or Anastasia. Or Nick or Lucas.
At Graphics Source and let them run your art department so you can focus on running your business.
I love those guys and I miss them.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm.
Choosing the right emulsion for your shop is complicated, and that's why we love Chromoline. Go to chromoline.com to watch Kev's vids or contact him on IG at the Emulsion Guru and get the answers you
need for sure.
Next and last, but definitely not least, if your shop is like ours and you are running more and more DTF and screen print transfers, then you need a partner that can get you quality transfers fast. Check out Howard Custom Transfers at howardct.com. And while you're there, order a sample pack.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah. Oh my gosh.
Well, bud.
Do you know when we finished that, right at that moment, Jeff popped up as he's here. And I mean, timing, we're all on a wave, I think.
Hey, Jeff, who do we have on today, bud?
His last name is...
It's a mind fuck.
No, starts with an M. You're close. Meilander. Meilander. How would you say this?
I'm going to go with the last one.
Meilander. Meilander. Okay. Yeah, and he's from Redwall. You ready?
Fucking born ready, bro.
Stretch. Dude, my pecs are so freaking huge right now because I've been doing these push-ups.
Never heard that ever before in my life.
Really?
Dude, my freaking pecs are so huge right now.
Like it's like heavy up here. Just they're massive. I've been doing like 30 push-ups a day.
Wow, you are so swole, bro.
I know.
You need to lay off the protein.
30. I meant to say 35 because the last set
It's all those steroids you took.
I know. I know. Well, and all the natural madness that I produce. That's helps.
Where is that?
You're looking at it. I just showed you.
Oh, it's invisible.
Okay. Be nice. You're supposed to pump me up right now. You're just like, holy shit. Like, wow.
I can see your massive pecs under your shirt.
Mm-hmm. Ready? You ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
Jeff. He might just hang up if he hears that.
Yeah, for sure. He's gonna get me the fuck out of here. There he is.
Hello.
What's up, dude? How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Look at you. Is this like you're all like in a nice dark room? You just like to hang in the dingy part of the shop?
Yeah, that's
dark
right.
and gloomy.
That's right. Nah.
Oh yeah. What's going on,
That's
man?
what I do at my shop, though. I mean, if he knows he's recording some video. What do you want him to open up the blinds right behind him, and then all of a sudden
I want him to be like super washed out from the sun.
Oh yeah.
What's going on, man? You got a busy day today?
Yeah. There's a lot going on today, so I appreciate you guys moving this a little sooner. I think you wanted to do it sooner initially, so that works out. Appreciate it.
You just wanted to test us.
Yep. See how quickly you could react.
I don't know why you would seem like you're busy with 1,000 presses or whatever that you have. I mean, what could happen? Like, I don't know what could go wrong. So
Exactly. Quite a bit, but
Yeah. So
all around doing good.
I think the question, we put out things for questions, and we all knew about your shop a little bit. And the biggest thing that people keep coming up is like, how did you get to where you got so quickly? And how do you manage that many presses and different departments and everything? So I think that's going to be the theme of the episode. So okay. I don't know how you want to dive into that, because I know you're almost all, or you are all, a contract shop.
Primarily. Yeah. I mean, not all, but for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess dive into that. Like, how did you get involved? Like, how did you get started with that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been doing this for quite a while. I started doing this over 20 years ago. Started printing shirts when I was like, in high school, basically. I had a friend that was, I think we were like 15, and he was learning how to do this in an art class, just cutting out ruby lith and printing shirts for whatever. We were in a band too shortly thereafter. So we were, I was kind of like watching him make merch for our, 14, 15-year-old, kids in high school playing in a band. So I just kind of like that was my first exposure to it. And I just kind of I just thought it was cool. I kept playing in bands and just kind of that whole story there. And that's really when I got more, got more into it. Right when I graduated high school, we went on tour, got a van, needed to get merch, sell merch to get gas money. So that's kind of how I learned to do it myself. The concept of going out and like hiring someone else to print shirts was never really something that I even considered at that age.
So you were still trying to DIY it then for the band the whole time?
I think that I was playing like, kid punk rock bands or whatever. I mean, DIY was just the way we did everything. Right. I mean, booked our own tours. I mean, everything. Right. So, this was just kind of another piece to that, I suppose. So again, I didn't really consider it. It was just like, hey, if we're going to have shirts, we got to learn how to print these things. So, I kind of had like a background, kind of had an idea of how to do it, just through friends and whatnot, but then just really just getting into it, going to art supply stores, buying screens, buying ink, squeegees, whatever, and just figuring it out. I'd expose screens with a pie plate and 150 watt bulb, and it would take 45 minutes to expose, and then wash out what you could, and it looked decent enough. And
were you trying to do these just like before you left on the road, or were you doing these like on the road, like in the van?
I didn't do, actually, no, that's not true. I did do that a little bit. Yeah. We'd bring a screen and some ink. And we did do that a couple times, just like print after a show and let them dry in an alley or whatever. We were just using water-based inks, just like air dry stuff that someone probably got it and washed out pretty quickly, but it didn't really matter.
It's part of the charm. Yeah.
We just go to we actually did do that a little bit. We'd like stop at like thrift stores or Goodwills or whatever and just get whatever blank shirts we could to then just print to have more. So that's kind of how I got into it. But then, shortly that was kind of like right after I was in high school, I was going to college and I still kept doing it and started learning more, learn more just about the equipment and the process and different ink types. I remember the first time I really realized what plastisol ink was. That was like really, I still remember it was like a back patch from like some crust punk band, and it was printed with this like rubbery stuff. And I was like, what is this? Like, I don't know what kind of ink would do this. So, I looking into it, just talking to people, whatever, just kind of very DIY, like learn that there's this other kind of ink, plastisol. Right. So then, shortly thereafter, I bought a 4-color single station press and a flash dryer off of eBay for like $600. Some guy, they had some squeegees and inks and whatnot, and then built my own exposure unit out of just like grow lights and pretty much just learned how to do it from there. So, I mean, I was like, 18, 19 years old doing this.
Were you trying to do it for other people too, or just for yourself?
At first it was just myself, it was kind of like hobby sort of, but I've always, even at a young age, been like business minded, and it was pretty quick that I was like, shit, I could like do this for other people and make some money. So, I started, making flyers and stuff like that and putting them up at coffee shops around school and whatnot. And, that pretty quickly turned into a thing where I was printing for, friends and bands and like local, record stores, coffee shops, whatever, just local businesses. So then I just saw the potential for where this could go. And 2002 is when I like kind of then officially made it a business. Before that was just kind of like for fun, side hustle, whatever. But 2002 is when I like went in, got the name Redwall, got a bank account, figured out, then the whole story of learning how to like run a business and pay taxes and do all that fun stuff started.
So you went in hot right from the beginning with Redwall.
Yeah. So that was actually came from one of the houses that I lived in, primarily where I was printing on the east side of Milwaukee as I was going to UW Milwaukee, going to college, was like a big blue like duplex. So like me and my friends lived on a level and somebody else lived on another level. And the first, like the basement foundation floor was like a red brick wall. So like I was down there in this little, probably like 200 square foot section of it, with the windows propped open all night. And I had a friend, actually, I was like, I got to call this something. And he's like, you should call it Redwall. You're always down there in the basement all the time with the red wall. Just call it that. So it's like, yeah, that's cool. I can always change it, whatever. And here we are.
Yeah.
So that's where that came from.
What do you guys, so many stories start off like, I was in this band and then I started making my merch. What do you think it is about screen printing and, merch? I'm sorry, being in a band and screen printing. What does it have in common that meshes so well that like everybody falls in love with it and starts doing it? What is it? Like, why does that happen so often? What do you think?
It's totally true. And I really think it's just that DIY like attitude, right? I mean, like when you're a band, you're writing your own music, you're figuring out how to play shows on your own, you're recording your own music. I mean, you're doing all of that like yourself. And it's just another piece of that, of what you got to do, I guess, if you're playing in a band or really any kind of like, entertainment or whatever, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
it's you got to sell merch, it's just like a piece that goes with it. You got records or CDs or tapes or whatever, or, now you're just selling like a downloadable, whatever, or just giving it away. But then you really got to sell your merch, right? Like that's how bands are like going to sustain to have some form of revenue. And I think that then just for me, and again, people that I know I know a lot of screen printers that were in bands, right? It's such a common story. And I think it's just that DIY kind of attitude just extended out to the other parts of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's the DIY, but it's also like you're doing an art that you learned while in a band and it made you money. And you're like, well, I know this skill now, but it's also like, you don't have to be a great musician either. Like if you were in a band and the band fell apart, you're like, I can still make merch. Like, I could just keep doing this. So that's what a lot of people end up doing is they do it. And the barrier to entry is so cheap to get into it that you could just keep going. And then if you're profitable, you can grow it into an actual shop, which is what happens to most people.
I think the barrier to entry being so low is a big part of it too. I mean, you can start printing shirts for, $50
you said
really
you go to
want
Michael's and buy a screen and speedball, and you can print them in a van and dry them in an alley. Like you can't get as homeless as that. Like,
and that's and those shirts look the coolest sometimes. Just like if they get too fancy, then they're not as cool. I think maybe it's the necessity of, like you said, we have to, like, this is a good way to like get food money or whatever it is, revenue for your band. And you do it for that reason. And then all of a sudden, like, once you're doing it, you're like, this is really cool. Like you fall in love, with the process maybe. And you're like, I can do this for other bands. And I can, like Dylan said, that's your skill that, when the band breaks up, which most of them do.
Yeah, no, right. I mean, that is what happened to me. I mean, there was a period of years after what we're talking about right now, probably up until about 2008 or so, where I was kind of juggling, like, I'm still like, I was still going to school until about 2005, but then I was, still playing shows on weekends, doing stuff all summer. From about 2005 to 2007, 8-ish, I toured quite a bit, and I was still running, I was printing shirts, but I had like a guy back at the shop that was printing, and I was like in the van, doing color seps and writing out invoices and doing emails to customers and doing whatever, like getting everything prepped and trying. It was just a lot, but it worked. There would be like gaps in the tour, and I would like fly home and print shirts crazy for like 48 hours and then like fly back and meet everybody. So yeah, but in the end it was like, hey, I'm doing pretty well with this, and this seems like a more viable path, I suppose.
Yeah,
so.
I remember the whole DIY thing for our band, and then that kind of fell apart, and I just kept doing it. But the funny part is like, once you're doing it outside of a band, you start thinking of bands that you really like and admire, and it's kind of like your wish list of like, I would love this person as a customer. And I remember that, like, I was doing that, and then you kind of learn the hard way that's, don't meet your heroes kind of thing, and find out they don't like to pay their bills and whatnot. But aside from that, I remember, like, back then, like, one of my favorite bands was The Chariot, and
right on.
I always wanted to work with Josh, and it was funny, like, when I was in New York, I always wanted to work with Josh, and like, I couldn't figure out like who printed their merch or whatever. And then I ended up moving to Atlanta to work at the other shop, and Josh is from Atlanta, so I saw The Chariot a ton of times when I was down there. And then I found out that Josh had his own print shop that basically printed his own stuff called Velvet Press. And he actually came to the shop I worked at when I was in Georgia to like learn other things that we were doing. So it's kind of cool getting to like talk to him about merch stuff. And then it's still to this day, like with all his other bands, like now he's doing 68, like he's still printing his own merch. Like all these years, he's still printing his own shit, which is awesome. Like he never left that cool DIY part, I feel like. And it's like, you're playing these big tours now. Like, I feel like they've always kind of gone all over the place, but like now he's playing, I think they were playing with like Korn not that long ago. And it's like, still printing your own shit. You know what I mean? It's kind of funny. So yeah, I mean, you never have to leave it,
right? I think even more now, if you look at the music industry and just how like record labels have become less relevant and all that. I mean, I think it makes it even more sense now. I mean, be as self-sufficient as you can. You'll be more successful if you can control your own
record
destiny,
your whole album on a fucking laptop, and you,
right.
So it's a different world now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So you got the 4-color. No, Andy, go ahead. I don't want to.
I just had this. So I was talking to a friend from college the other night, and he has this really successful business in St. Louis. He builds carports for like a lot of the like Midtown and in the city of St. Louis. There's a lot of alleys, and on those alleys, that's where you kind of park. That's where you park your car. And he builds carports, and he's been doing this for years, and he has a reputation that's super solid. But I asked him, we started talking about business, and it turns out that like he gets a third down. So when he goes out there and they're like, yeah, I want a carport, he gets a third down, and he just writes like this handwritten contract, and then they Venmo him or Cash App or whatever, this money. And so I was thinking, like, first of all, it's a lot of money that they're they're sending you, and how do they trust you? You know, he has a good reputation. He's done like hundreds of these things. And so a lot of times it's like a neighbor or it's on the same street. He already had built one, and so they know that he's going to do this, you know, great work. But how important do you think it is to present yourself professionally? You know, because I feel like if I were to just like willy-nilly write out like a little contract that, yeah, we're going to print your shirt order, and then by the way, Venmo, like cash at me, you know, $2,000 or whatever it is, and be like, well, how do I know you're going to actually print my shirts, you know? And so I think when somebody comes into our shop, or when somebody pays an invoice online with, when we send them an invoice, you know, it looks professional. And then also we're here, and it looks there. Some people just give us cash sometimes. So like, you know, and they trust us.
Yeah.
So isn't that hard? Like when you're starting out to build that sort of reputation?
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting because, yeah, I mean, I think about, you know, back then, I mean, and I was like in my house. I mean, people were coming to like a duplex with like a dude eating a cheeseburger on the, you know, sitting on the couch, and like another guy, like, you know, whatever, drinking beers on the porch. Like that was like what I was running my business out of, which I didn't like, you know, that was bothering me. And these things were like all motivations for me to grow and get spots of my own and bigger spaces and, you know, have offices and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's just, if people word of mouth, right? If people know and they say like almost all my business early on there was word of mouth. I mean, it really was. So it was like,
well, they're
like,
investing in
go
you.
to this guy. Yeah, right. They're like, hey, yeah, that guy knows what he's doing. You did this. Look at this. Or people will say, where'd you get that? You know, and like, got it from this guy. He does it in his house, but whatever, go for it. And so I think that kind of just like word of mouth trust, you know, and I obviously wasn't like messing around. You know, I made sure I met all my commitments and wasn't going to screw anybody over. So like, I think that obviously is, you almost don't get a second chance with that kind of stuff. You know, you got to do it right. Because if you don't, word will travel real quick, and that kind of thing is not going to happen. And you're gonna have to struggle to get it back. So yeah, I think that was, you know, coming, right out of the gate for me. It was just got to be honest, right? You gotta get it done when people are asking for it. And obviously, if people give you money, don't spend it before you get done with your job. You know. So like I said, I mean, I've always been like business minded and understood that like responsibility that you have when you're trying to do something for someone. You're dealing with somebody's money, their livelihood, really. Right? Yeah. You gotta take that seriously.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like you're investing at that point for that dude, even though it's him in a truck with a notepad. Like you're relying on your friend's word that this guy makes sweet carports. Like you're just kind of like, oh, this is the guy. Like I do that all here all the time. Like I told you the story about the skunk guy, Victor, who looks like a fucking serial killer that like does the skunk removal here. I've definitely told this story. I'm pretty sure. If I haven't, it'll
tell it again.
A lot of people will be upset.
Tell it. Sounds good.
I don't know if I want to. So anyway, there's this thing where like we get all these skunks onto the building like every couple of years because the whole building's on like 4-foot stilts. If you don't know, my shop is kind of out in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York, so like it's not in the city or anything. But like we get creatures that end up living under the building, and we get skunks every so often, and they spray, and it makes the shop smell and all this other stuff. So years ago, I was doing the Yellow Pages thing, like looking for a pest control person to come out and like get rid of these skunks. And I ended up getting like, I looked at a bunch of places and they were like, yeah, it's, you know, $150 to $200 to remove each skunk. And there's a fee to come out and set traps and like all this other stuff. And I was like, oh, all right, whatever. And then someone was like, oh, did you hear about Victor? Like, you know, over in Green, which is a town like nearby. And I was like, no, what about Victor? They're like, yeah, he'll come do it. I think he removes them for like, I don't know, like $10 a piece or something. And I was like, who's this fucking Victor guy? So I call this Victor guy, and it's some dude's home number. Guy picks up, sounds like he like just came back from the dead. And he shows up in this like literally like straight out of a horror movie. Like he comes in like green overalls. Like that's all I've ever seen this guy wear. He shows up in this tiny pickup truck with a cap on it. And I swear, like half of his face is like dead or scarred. And he's just creepy as fuck. Shows up and he's just like, yeah, where's your problem or whatever. And he does the job. Like he crushes the job. Like he puts out all these traps. He sets things a certain way. He ended up catching 15 skunks.
No,
which is insane. Yeah. So I'm glad I didn't go with the other company that was like $200 a skunk or whatever, because it would have been a small fortune to get rid of these creatures. Well, anyway, like year after year, we kept getting these skunks for like a couple years in a row. And I was like, oh, gotta call Victor, like this guy's creepy as fuck, but like he gets the job done. So he comes and, we're calling him. And then one day we ask him, and this is the part where like I'm going to get canceled. I'm going to get in trouble. But we talked to him one day and I was like, so just curious, like, because it's like a pest. Like, it's not like you want to let it go down the road because it's going to go to somebody else's house or whatever. Mm-hmm. I was like, what do you do with these skunks? He's like, oh, I drown them. I was like, right. whoa, hold on. He's like, yeah, I just leave them in the trap, throw them in a pond and drown them and then pull the trap back out. And I was just like, oh my God, like you've got like, here I am thinking he's driving out to a nature preserve and like letting him go. And it's like, no, this is Victor, the skunk murderer. And
I thought you were gonna say he ate them.
Yeah, so. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, he probably does eat some.
After he drowned them, then he eats them.
After he drowns them, he eats them, right? That's the only way.
They're perfect to fry up at that point.
Right. Yeah. So way off track with the story, but the moral of that, I think, was that the guy, no matter how creepy he was, he got the job done and I paid him. So
yeah.
It is what it is. So back to screen printing. Now that people are going to hear this, and PETA's going to be at my door. You got the 4-color single station. How do you get from there to there?
Yeah. So 4-color, working in the basement. Obviously, want to get out of that setting and learn, just get better at what I'm doing. So, whatever point it was there, I moved into. I got another kind of similar, but more like a storefront. So it was like a storefront downstairs. It was actually an old butcher shop. This is in an area of Milwaukee called Bayview. So it's like older. Building was probably, from like 1910 or something like that, 1920. And then upstairs. So I lived upstairs with some of the same dudes I lived with at the other place. But then downstairs was kind of like all mine, had separate space, had my own rent, had whatever, different lease, all of that. And in there, I found a place that was actually, I think, going out of business, real small shop in like Iowa somewhere. And I rented a truck and drove out there and kind of bought his whole setup. So that got me like a 6-color 4-station M&R, like a blue Max 3, newer flash dryer, very new exposure unit, which like just completely changed my life from going from like, fluorescent like grow lights to like an actual like vacuum bed exposure unit. Like that was probably the biggest like shock to me when I made that, like got there. I was like, holy shit, this is so much better, and even that, now you're like computer screen and everything. Right. But anyway, so yeah. So
were you still doing bands then? Was that your main focus? Yeah. I
mean, it was like, I don't want to say it was like my main focus, cause I was also doing a lot of other local businesses, like just whatever, anything from like schools to bars to, bands to promo stuff, whatever, but very kind of small scale, I remember getting like a 2,000 piece order, like 3-color front, 3-color back. And that was like huge and took me forever, to do. So it's still like,
anything and everything that came in,
like anything and everything, and like local driven pretty much. Right. So I had that whole setup there for maybe like 2-ish years. And then I'm like, all right, I got to figure out this automatic world, right? I got to get an auto. So that was a pretty big deal too. I found an auto for sale through like a used dealer or whatever. I think it was in Indiana. I didn't know where I was going to put it yet. I just wanted this press. Like I needed to get it to like, I thought I had a place, but I wasn't sure yet. So I was like, I'm just going to get this press. So I bought this, it was a 12-color Challenger, like original Challenger 1 from probably like 1989.
I don't know where I'm going to put this press. Let me go get a 12-color.
That's what happened. Yeah. So I went down. I did have a spot that thought I was moving into, but I still had to get through like occupancy with the city, and the landlord was being kind of a jerk and stuff like that. So I had to figure out like how I was going to work all this out. But I did go get it. He said, okay, look, we don't have this finalized, but when you get this thing, you can just like put it in the building and then we'll figure it out. Kind of, I think he liked it because he was like, gotcha, you're locked in for a lease if you're going to do this.
Yeah.
So I drove down, picked this thing up, brought it back, put it there, then had all these issues with the city that I was in. And it really wasn't like an issue with me. It was more like the landlord and the city had some beef that was creating issues for me. So I didn't actually get this lease done. So I'm still working out at the other place, got this auto just sitting there driving me crazy that I can't, learn how to use it. And it probably it was probably like 4 or 5 months before I found another place to bring it to. So then I ended up getting another like different space that was I was allowed to work out of. So took it there, got it set up, and then just learned automatic printing, right? And that was a big shift, right? Just learning how to do that kind of printing, how to keep up with it, and then really how to fill the press, right? So I think that's where I got exposed to the contract world.
Are you at this point still by yourself, or do you have employees?
I have some employees.
Okay.
Yeah. So, So, no, I had employees at that point. Yeah. I had like 4 or 5. I think I had like 4 or 5 employees.
So
Like
you got a
legit-
new place.
These are a couple people that
full time or like employees.
Yeah,
or just
no, not full time. I think it was like 1 full time and maybe like 3 kind of part time that helped out like here and there. But yeah, it was pretty quick though that we got more.
Did you go right in to hiring people and doing it like? Did you pay them cash at first, sort of under the table thing, or did you go right into like payroll and real deal like taxes, withholding, and all that stuff?
I mean, there was a little bit of that early on, but when I got to this point, it was, I had an accountant, I realized that there was a lot of things I had to figure out kind of in that like manual setup. Like before I got into automatic presses, before I had that space, I did have a third party, accountant that I was working with just for like doing my taxes. So I was getting the concept of the things that I need to keep track of and the things I need to submit to pay taxes and all that kind of stuff, submit sales tax. I mean, all of that, like I was doing that pretty early on because I knew that was like a necessity. And I mean, my goal was growth, right? I wasn't just doing this like I was doing it for fun kind of, but I also wanted to see it grow. So yeah, so it was pretty quick that I was trying to do it legit. Once I had employees and all that, for sure. But anyway, yeah. So that we got in this space, and again, I was mainly the one printing. Then I had another person that was pulling and cleaning screens and doing whatnot, and then the kind of part-time people that would catch and fold and package and whatever.
So I think my question there is, you said you got the auto. Was it that you were at that place that a lot of printers are at, where you get that, and then you're kind of stressing a little bit, trying to fill work on the auto?
There was a little bit of that, yeah. I mean, I bought like everything. Like I never had loans on anything. I was paying cash for everything. So I didn't have that like burden over me, which I'm really glad, looking back now, that I didn't like go out and try to take out a loan before I knew how I was going to print or how I was going to fill up the press. So, it's sitting there for months. Like I was like, okay, this sucks. It's tied up. I can't use it, but at least I'm not like paying like a monthly bill on it. And I think that helped with like my, not like making wrong decisions, I guess, or like doing things the way I should. Maybe I should.
I think it's the business growth itch that you have as an owner of like, fuck, I really want to like fill this. I want this thing to be cranking. I want to be busy all the time.
Yeah.
So was that where you were just like, all right, I'm going to dive into contract a little bit to see if I can get more?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was that. And I think it was just like, I'm sitting here and I'm just like, how are other shops getting these like thousands and thousands of piece orders? Like, where is this world? Because it wasn't the world that I was really like living in with local businesses. Right. Of course the auto made things a lot easier. We could get a lot more done in a day. Allowed like at that time, like big prints were super popular. So like trying to do like a huge, like, 26-inch tall printing was like, you had to learn how to do it. So that press really is where I learned a lot about how to handle that kind of printing, getting to water-based discharge and stuff like that. So, I mean, there was a lot of just kind of like my own R&D going on. I mean, not just on the printing side too, but on the mechanical side of just how to, how valves and solenoids and PLC controllers and stuff like that, like how to chopper valves and how to replace, there's all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, that press was like, I mean, I could pretty much take that thing apart and put it back together out of necessity. Because when something breaks and you're like, shit, job's on head 4, but it doesn't work, but I can take it off at head 8. You got to take it off and put it there and then figure out how to fix it later.
What's awesome for you is that you were in Chicago, which you could probably drive over and get a part if you needed it, if the press was down.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting the way you grew. It's sort of how I did those early days anyway, like those. So I did sort of the same thing. Like you mentioned that you were the one that was doing printing and then you had the support that you hired in. And that's exactly what I did at first, because I didn't know any other people that knew how to print, but I knew how to print, and I just needed like assistance. I needed people that could get me screens, could clean, reclaim screens for me. I needed people that could be at the end of a dryer and not let them fall in a box anymore, because that just took twice as long to get them out and then stack them up and they're all wrinkled, all that kind of stuff. And I needed somebody to offload when I got a decent size order. And so I that's how I started adding my early like team. That's how I started building my team, is just hiring people to help me, because I was the main printer. And then eventually I wasn't, and then it's a whole new problem.
Yep.
But you know what I mean? Like I think it's interesting that you grew like that. And I wonder how many shops do like that's how it goes, because you're like, who do I hire? Who's my first hire? It's confusing.
Yeah. I think it's real common, right? I mean, I think that's something that I think a lot of shops go that same way. I mean, unless you were to get into it some way that wasn't, yourself doing it. Like if you were to buy a company, or, maybe I never worked at another screen print place. I did try to get jobs when I was younger, like when I was in high school, and shortly thereafter, I went around and applied to like every screen print place there was, because I was just really interested in it. I was, peeking in the back, like I want to see the autos running. I want to understand this world. And none of them hired me. So it was even more, I think, more of a push to be like, well, I guess I just got to figure this out myself.
Maybe it's a good thing they didn't hire you, because maybe
I think it is, man. Totally. Like looking back, I think it is, because I who knows? Like I could have just ended up, I could be running the shops, just like, working in a shop, just, second shift manager or something. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. So I don't think I would have been, I don't think I would be happy with that, just with just my like drive for expansion and creativity and whatever. And just business. Like, I mean, I just like business and seeing businesses grow.
Mm-hmm. So what's the next step then? You get the auto, you start.
Yeah, where am I there? So start learning about the contract world, taking that on, starting to see larger orders, and actually probably within 6 to 8 months of getting that press up and running, I bought another auto. Found another one that was used, old Gauntlet, like a Gauntlet original revolver or something like that, like an 8 color. And I was like, all right, I can fit this in whatever spot. I had room for it. So I got that one. And at first it was kind of like a backup. It was sort of like, leave the sleeve boards on, go run sleeves over there, and then run, just to kind of have that. But we got to the point that we were running it. And then,
you got that because you were starting to take on more and more contract work?
Yeah. And a little bit of obsession with equipment, I guess, I found a used press from wherever, some broker. And I was like, it was close enough. And I was like,
are you one of those guys? Because I definitely have friends that are that way, like that just scour used equipment and buy it, even though they don't need it because they want it.
I was like that. I really don't do that anymore, because I think I don't need to, and I appreciate the like new equipment's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
but yeah, no, I definitely was. I mean, even like, things that you don't even think about. Like I was looking for a heat press, and I found this like really nice oversized, like dual shuttle, probably like a 26 by 32 or something like that. I don't know, big heat press.
That's a big one,
but it could be downsized for normal t-shirts and whatever. And it was a really good deal, and it was a pain in the ass to get, but I was like, let's get this thing. Not realizing that like down the line, that was going to be really valuable, as people were looking for like a huge, like front, like foil print or something, I would have had no other way to like meet that need. So yeah, I mean, for a while there, I did stickers and posters and stuff like that. So I had a couple of like clamshell presses, had UV dryer for a while. I was doing like UV stickers. I don't do any of that stuff anymore, just because it's not really what we focus on. But it was kind of like just all things screen print interested me, and just if the equipment made sense and I could get it, I could afford it, it was just kind of, fun for me to have it.
Yeah. So when you started diving into contract, how did you go about that? Like, what was your plan? Did you find a broker, or did you?
Yeah, I mean, it was like local. There were a few companies that I had contacts with that contacted me. It was mainly like, I think both of the ones I'm thinking about, it was like the artists in the art department that might have known me from other stuff. I dabbled with like live printing back then and stuff like that. So I kind of would like have that presence in places where people might not otherwise see it. And I know at least one of those, we're doing like a live printing event for whatever street festival type thing. And, it was a guy that was in art department for like a marketing firm. And he was like, could you figure out how to print this thing? It was just like doing like water-based printing. And I was like, yeah, we can do water-based printing. So that was like kind of like my in with this particular marketing company. And then they were like, okay, well, now that we know you can do that, can you just give me like a 2-color corporate left chest on this many pieces? I was like, yeah, I can do that too. So that kind of like helped feed the beast, I guess, early on. And again, with expansion, trying to get like bigger equipment. I want to say this was another big jump I made. And this was actually the first time I did take out debt on a piece of equipment, was getting a 16 color press, because I wanted more colors. So I bought a used 16 color that had like all over capabilities, so it could do really large print areas. It was a workhorse. I mean, remember those things, like the workhorse Falcon, not the greatest press in any way, shape, or form, but for what I was doing at the time, it was like all I could really pull off to get something that impressive.
Is this all still in the same building?
This is in the same building, but the building was kind of like multiple sections. So I like took
you could just keep taking it over.
Yeah. So when I had the 2 presses, there was a wall right there, and then I could take down that wall, which got me about another like maybe 2,500, 3,000 square feet. So then when I did that, I was able to get that press in there, which kind of like opened up the more opportunities for contract printing. And all this was really driven just by customers saying like, hey, I want this. Can you do this?
Right.
And I can't, like, what do I do? What do I say when someone comes at me and says, I want to do a 12 color stim process, or even just like an 8 color spot color, like, how do I get that done? So that was the drive for me to just keep expanding. It still is, but that was really the push, is just, I don't want to say no. I want to meet the customer's needs. They have a problem. I want to fix it, right? I want to be able to make it happen for them. So then probably like 2000, I want to say we'd be at about 2009, 10, right in there. And at that point, there was actually, there was another shop, large contract shop, or not really so much contract, but a larger shop in the area that had, probably, at their height, they had well over 100 employees, right? Lots of good printers that they'd had for years. And that shop shut down kind of slowly. So their employees went kind of to like a part-time schedule. And I saw it as an opportunity to like get some experienced printers in here to help like take over more of the printing and let me try to go out and sell more. So
you're just
that
sitting in the parking lot like, hey, want a full-time job?
Kind of, yeah. And I did like, like my like key guy today, he came from that kind of like that time, that era. So like, and he was interested in working with me, and I was like, his experience was great. And I was like, yeah, dude, let's see what we can do together here. Let's see what we can bring. And that helped too, because he knew guys that knew how to print, and that just kind of, again, really, like at that point, it really helped to push the production end, where I felt more comfortable being like, okay, cool. I've got, at that point, I think within the next year or so, probably had about 25 people working there. I did get another auto kind of in that whole process. So I had 4 autos in that shop.
Were you getting like an auto a year at that point?
At least, yeah, probably. Yeah. I think within like that first auto going in, and then it was probably about 3 years that we were in that building. I had four autos and like 3 manuals in there.
And why,
but yeah.
Why grow from there? So you have 4 autos,
can't say
4
no.
autos, you can print a lot of t-shirts. Like, you're outputting a shitload of shirts, and a lot of people, pump the brakes, and they're like, okay, and this is good, and it's everything's working out, but not you. So what was it that, that when it made you want to grow even further?
Well, I think just in general, I just wanted to keep going with it, but in that building was just like not set up for doing what we were doing. I mean, it was like an older kind of like in the city sort of industrial building. Trucks couldn't deliver there. Semis would pull up, and I'd have to like send a bunch of people out. They would just unload trucks by hand and set them on the street. And
Definitely done that.
Couldn't have a forklift, no drive-in door. Like that whole it was difficult, right? So I think because it was so difficult to just manage that aspect of it, I was like, we got to get a bigger, like more industrial building, something in an industrial park, something that trucks can pull up to,
Right.
All of that. So that brought me on the search for finding that building. And I found a building that we moved to in 2000, I think 11, it was 2011, 12, somewhere in there. And it was a foreclosure. So I bought it. And that was a big, maybe we can talk more about that, but that's another big thing that I think were good decisions I made, was buying the buildings that we were in. So that was the first building that I bought, but I bought that building. I had to do a lot of work to it. It wasn't up to code as far as like sprinkler systems and things like that, but it all worked out well. I got it all set up, moved in there. And now we had like kind of like a more like legit space with the flow was better. You had the receiving area, shipping receiving area, the production area, legit screen room, offices, like all of that, versus what we had before, which was just everything everywhere. It just was not like sustainable, long term as far as the business is concerned.
I have an offshoot question to that real quick. You kind of went from the apartment building to the other place, and you were knocking down walls and adding presses and all this other stuff. And I know you said you never worked in another shop, and you're kind of doing it all on your own. Was there an outlet for you that you kind of reached out to somebody to figure out these business moves, or what was the best thing to do? Or were you just kind of like seat of your pants?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, I had, like I mentioned, I had an accountant that I worked with. I mean, once I got into buying the building, I had a relationship with a bank, a really good banker at the time, younger guy about the same age as me. And he was kind of good influences, like kind of guiding me through those challenges and giving me a heads up of like what to do and what not to do. And also I think just sort of, yeah, I don't know, just kind of him and the accountant that I had at the time, both younger dudes. And I think they looked at this and they were just like, this is cool, man. Just go for it. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're just going to end up having to go back or do something else or whatever. You're young, you can see what happens. And, it really was just kind of like my own, just drive to keep going.
It seems like a lot of what you did was well thought out, but it was a lot of reactionary to like what was coming at you. You know what I mean? Like what the customer wants, what the customer needs. You're just like, you just say yes and then figure it out.
Yeah, I would say that I'm a calculated risk taker, but like ready to go as soon as I see the opportunity, you got to take it, but make sure it's not going to blow up right after, at least not right after, still take the risk. But I don't know. I mean, that's
not a bad thing at all. That's kind of, that's exactly what I've done is I just kind of, I don't know what I don't know until I try it, and it either works or it doesn't.
I have,
right on.
I'm the same way. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are, and in a quote I heard recently is the accountant sees the risk, but the entrepreneur sees the possibility. And so I think that you said calculated risk. Yeah, we all know it's risky to go sign a lease or to buy a building or to get more presses and all these sort of things. But we also, I think I see that risk, but I see it more of a possibility or an opportunity. Yep. You know what I mean? And so also I have this, this is an offshoot too. And while you were talking about adding like a big press, so you got that 16 color, we all want those, we want the biggest press possible because our goal is to spin once whenever possible. But recently there was, and Dylan knows about this too, it kind of got a little heated about print engineering and keeping that press just going around once by like good artwork, let's say, or good separations. And then the reality of putting in a revolver mode and spinning twice, or sometimes even 3 times, or maybe you only have 2 flashes and you need 3, and you've ordered the 3rd flash, but you haven't hooked it up or whatever it is, or maybe you need 4 flashes to make that happen, just to spin once, on an 18 color, I imagine I'd probably want 5 fucking flashes. But, some people would say, well, you're not sepping right. Like, why don't you're not putting in gutters or whatever, or maybe you could fix that pre-press. But the reality I think is that we run multiple presses every day. There's going to be something, even if we have somebody like full-time, nonstop, trying to sep perfectly, you're going to run into situations where, wait, we got to spin it again. Because why? Because I want it to look a little bit better. I want to put out that little bit better quality. And I think that, I don't know, do you agree? Or is that sort of a silly notion and you get away with, or maybe you figured it out. You just spin once all the time.
We don't all the time, but we try to all the time. Right. I mean, that's the goal. Like you said, we're doing contract printing. So we figure if we have to spin something, even a double stroke, right? Even doing a double stroke is something that we have to calculate for. We have that on a price sheet. If something requires a double stroke, like high salt acrylic water base or something like that, we don't always charge for it, but we technically do have a charge for that because it'll slow. A double stroke on a press could slow down your print speed by almost 30%. And that's going to really add up at the end of the day or at the end of the month or the end of the year if you're running that way. Same thing with going around twice.
How do you tell, I guess if you have a big contract customer who does it all the time, they're used to it, but like, how do you tell the customer that? You're like, hey, I know I said at this price for this shirt, but I feel like then you're getting into the weeds of like, well, actually, the red is going to do this, or this might have more dot gain, so I have to do this, and this one's going to be 1 pass of this, and the other one's going to be 2 passes of this. Like, how do you say?
We kind of work it in for our highest color counts. If we have our contract price list goes up to a 14 color print. So I kind of assume that at a 14 color, we might have to spin it twice. So there is a little bit of a pad in there. If anything, it's like over 12, like a 13 or 14. We really don't need to spin around twice for most stuff, just because we have enough high color count machines and we can go to press based on if it's going to need it, if it's a 3 flash. I mean, all of our presses have at least 2. Majority probably have, majority have 3. Some have 4 or even 5.
I guess this might be a controversial question, and you can answer it if you want to, but like, we kind of have a thing here where I hate when they come to me and they're like, they already know, the printer already knows the answer. They're doing a job, they bring it in and they're like, well, this is what it looked like the way that we planned, and this is the way it looks like if I add another flash or do another spin. And it's like, why the fuck are you asking me? Like, it looks better this way. Do it that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're
think,
doing a contract job and it's this huge deal and you're like, well, if we do 2 passes of this, it's going to be 30% slower and it's going to bog us down here. Do you just on the fly make the decision, fuck it, do it 2 passes? Or do you call the customer and you're like, it's going to be
no, and we're not going to bill them for it either. Like, if we're on press and we know that it's good, if we didn't tell them beforehand that we needed to do that and we get on press and it needs it, most likely, unless it's like a really big deal, like a huge job where we're really going to see like, a cost hit because of it, we're just going to do it. We're just going to make it look right. And that's fine. Right. It's not for an average order, you got a couple 100-piece order running around twice. It's going to cost you more. It hits a little bit, but it's nothing that's really going to, in the grand scheme of things, it's better to make sure that sure looks good.
Right. Like, I don't want that to happen all the time. Like, it's a bottleneck and an issue if they're coming to you with that constantly, because then it's more of a systems issue when it's constantly like, well, you said should be this and this is happening. But there's also times in the art department where we take a job, we say it's going to be 8 colors or 10 colors or whatever. And then Brian comes to me, he's like, actually, this would look a little bit better if we added a 13th color or whatever. Usually in those cases, I'm like, yeah, just add the 13th color. Like, I know why they're asking me, because it's a whole nother screen, it's a whole other thing. But I would rather everybody here approach it of like, this is the best possible product we're going to get if we add 1 more color, or if we add that extra spin, or, instead of, we could get away with 1 spin if we do this, and this wet on wet, but the yellow has a little bit of pickup if we're not flashing between the red and the yellow.
But I think somebody's going to probably argue, well, you need an ink engineer, or you need to re-engineer that ink to not pick up. And I think that, so this is maybe provocative. What if, you said your costs go up 30% if you have to double stroke something. And I think that you could say the same for
the time involved. Yeah. The time.
You're talking about the time,
so your labor
you're talking
costs.
about the ROI would be worth having someone labor wise to take care of.
Right there. So like, if you have multiple presses, at what point does it make sense to hire somebody and all they do is engineer inks, engineer seps, so that you can spin once, like as much as possible, like maximize or optimize that option, because it's costing you to double stroke and do all these other things. So you have to, but you think to yourself like, oh my gosh, I've got to commit. Somebody that has that level of knowledge and skill about printing to be able to engineer that sort of stuff, or to, hey, you know what, instead of 8 color, if we burned 1 more screen, we could hit this a little different and we're going to go faster actually to make it 9. We're not charging the customer for 9 screens. We're just burning that screen for us, like for our speed. Somebody that knows how to do that sort of stuff, that's going to be expensive. That's going to cost you. But do you save in the end,
I think that's a question for you, Jeff, because I think it gets to be at a certain point, like me at 3 autos and Andy at 3. It's kind of like, when does it get to that point where it does offset to get that extra person or that special thing to make sure that X amount of autos or X amount of DTG machines or whatever it is you're doing are running as efficiently as possible?
I mean, from my experience, there's so many pieces. We kind of have each department sort of, obviously each department is trained to do what they do. And it's our intention that like the art department will note that, okay, yeah, maybe an extra screen would be necessary here, things like that. And they'll do that, or usually they'll ask for like an approval, be like, hey, I know we're charging for 8 colors. I really think it should be 9. Can we use the 9th screen? I say, yeah, just throw in the 9th screen. And they're not necessarily coming to me. They're going to like a manager, art director, right, production manager, somebody like that. But if I'm there, they'll just ask me. And ultimately, I'm kind of making the last call there. And I'm like, yeah, just do it. It's fine. I'll look at the job. And if it's a job where I think we're going to get hit, and you mentioned like, why do employees come up and even bother asking? But that's going to be because they respect the cost, right? They realize that there's a cost to making that change, that the company could be being affected, right? And so and that's going to be you at the end of the day that's kind of has to make that call if the company needs to change their margins based on just doing something without charging the customer. So I think that's why an employee would bring that up. But trying to think to hire someone that can do all of that is difficult. I don't know. I mean, I only have a very small.
I think there's only
here that could do all of it.
I was going to say, I think we're
me and maybe like 2 other people.
We're skipping around like the elephant in the room here, and the reason, like, Eric's not going to give a shit. So Eric hired Danny to do that. Basically, he's having Danny come in to be a print engineer at Night Owl, which I feel like there's only a couple people that have the knowledge of running a shop and what certain screens do and what certain inks do, and have the knowledge and the experience that are in a position where they don't have a shop anymore, and they're available to be that hire. Like, how many, it's not like you hire someone off the street and be like, hey, will you be a print engineer for the shop? Like,
it takes a lot of
knowledge for that.
So the way we look at it is more departmental. If the department really knows what they're doing, the department leads know what they're doing, and they know how to mix the inks for different cases, and the screen room knows how to do their thing, and the artists know when to add additional things. And then on press, the printers kind of know, or the printers know when things have to happen. And we do have floor managers that like just production oriented, that just deal with the production. They're just looking at the presses, and also trying to help teach people and guide them and know what to look for.
Exactly, right there.
And it's an evolution,
I like that part, because is it our responsibility as leaders to, knowing that maybe, like at this point, our shop could use that person? Should I pull somebody that I think that I'm confident that could do that role, that could fill that role, pull them off press, or pull them off of a pod manager or whatever manager, or maybe they're not even a manager. Maybe they just have been around a press for a long time, and they recognize, they've seen the mistakes, they've seen the successes, and they could go train into that position over the course of, I don't know, 3 to 6 months, maybe a little longer, a year. And all of a sudden, like, they're like really good at print engineering. Yeah. And so couldn't you from within pick that person and train them into that role? I think that's could.
When shop's ready for that, I do highly advise that. It's pretty great. For me too, I can walk around the shop and pick out things and like just see what's going on just with my experience and knowledge of it, and having other people back there, they're just doing the exact same thing. It takes weight off of me that I know that there's other people at that like mindset. They're not necessarily tied into the jobs. They're not really tied into like the business, and even really maybe not even tied into like the art or the screens, right? They just know what that end result should be. Mm-hmm. And I think being able to help correct on press is good too. I mean, we're running 16 to 17 autos now pretty much every day. So being able to correct with new employees and saying be able to see why an employee is having a problem on fleece or certain colors or wet on wet type things, and then try to work with them right away on that specific job, have the time to do it so that they get better at their job. Having a dedicated person that can do that kind of stuff is big. Now you're going to lose probably your best printer on press. And that's why I think a lot of shops don't do it, because the guy to do that, or the person to do that, is going to be like probably your best printer. But making that like sacrifice should pay off big time in the long run. Right. So at least that's what we've seen. I think.
What are some other, go ahead, Amy.
Last thought on that is, I think it could be a win-win, because a lot of times the printer that you're choosing to be, fill that role, maybe they're ready for growth. Maybe who knows if they've burnt out, or maybe they're going to put their 2 weeks in and surprise you, like next month, because they're like, hey, I've like taken this as far as I can, and I'm looking for something else. If you offer them that spot, maybe all of a sudden they love it. It could be a win-win.
Yep, right on. No, I agree.
What are the things, because you did the whole, direct to the end consumer kind of thing, and you got into the contract thing. What are some things that you basically have to do differently as a shop? I mean, we all know that like speed is king when it comes to contract stuff, and efficient, and like not having little to no screw ups. But like, what are some other things that I didn't realize? Like you said, that charging for a double stroke, I've never heard of that, which, I mean, that makes total sense. You talk about it, but like, what are some other things that you have to look out for as a contract shop that you wouldn't normally?
Well, looking at your costs, because your margins are going to be thinner. You're at the kind of the bottom of the food chain in many ways when it comes to the production process. I mean, sometimes there'll be a job that'll have 3 companies in between that actual end buyer, and everyone's got to get their piece of it. So it's got to be competitive, and you got to make sure that you're just watching out for all that. You don't necessarily have the opportunity to fix things right away on press because it's contract. They're supplying the goods. I mean, it sucks when someone's got a 600 piece order with a 12 color front, 4 color back, 8 color sleeves, and they send you exactly 600 shirts. That is something. I mean, we obviously have a spoilage rate in our pricing, but it sucks. We don't want to be short because we realize that just creates problems for everybody. And we're generally going to set something back up and run it at the same cost and kind of take the hit there. So, just really understanding all of that stuff. Time, you're selling ink and labor. So time is important to track it, make sure jobs are getting set up, going down at a good pace. I mean, all of those things that when you have the kind of the pad of doing like a full package where you got more, there's just more margin, right? You got upcharge on the blanks and all that. You're just not going to see that. So I think it just takes a little, I don't want to say it takes more because you should be looking at all that stuff regardless, but maybe you got to be really kind of more.
It just doesn't sting as bad if you're making a lot more margin on a shirt. Well,
and I think that's where the volume comes in for contract printing. A lot of contract printers can get big. That was another thing too, getting into the contract world. I know we stopped. Just to sum this up, I guess, real quick. The building we were in before was about 25,000 square feet. We got up to 6 autos. Then we moved to our current building in 2014, 15. We actually fully moved in. This building is about 100,000 square feet. We made that transition. I added 4 more presses. So we had 10 autos, and then quickly up to 12. My goal was to double our capacity within about a year, which we did, and then have been adding presses since. So we're up to 7. We have 17 autos now. I think that volume helps to have a job where you do have something that gets screwed up or a screen pops on press or whatever happens. And that job is kind of just a wash. You might lose on it, and being able to have the volume to sustain those kinds of things is more, that's why the volume is good. Small contract shop, if you're a contract shop trying to do like solely contract with only a couple autos, I could see that being difficult. I mean, that was my drive to expand and grow, is because those things really would sting. And it's like, I got to take on more work to kind of like offset. I hate that model. We don't want to offset the bad with the good, but you got screens that break on press and you got 3 people standing there while a new screen is shot. It takes an hour to get through that process. You got to be prepared to take those kinds of hits.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I think a lot of shops think about, and that's why they either do or they don't. They take that jump. And I've got buddies that basically have gone from, going into full contract or whatever. And they're like, yeah, I love it because, I don't have to deal with the customer necessarily. I don't have to deal with all this other shit. I'm just manufacturing. But then I feel like there's the catch-22 of that. Like you said, in order to be profitable and not have to worry about it as much, you want to have more and more people, more and more presses, more and more of this. And then when does it become the point where it's kind of like, well, yeah, I was concerned about getting work in the door at first. Now I don't have to ever think about getting work in the door, but I constantly have to think about, I have 17 autos and I have 100 something employees, and shit happens. And it's
that's a whole different level of stress. It really is.
I feel like you're trading one stress for another stress.
You kind of are. Yeah. You still got to worry about getting jobs in the door. You still got to make sure everyone keeps working. If anything, there's more responsibility. There's more people involved. I take that very seriously, that we have a lot of employees here. There's about 130 employees here right now. And, they're committing themselves to do this. And I take that very seriously. And I'm very appreciative of that. So I feel like I got to make sure I can keep people working and sustain their livelihood.
I think and maybe Jeff, you can speak to this. Maybe it's just all relative though, because imagine, like when you first were riding a bike, you were super tuned in to, oh shit, and any minute I can crash and this is going to hurt. But then not to I don't know, a few weeks later or a few hours in some cases, you're not even thinking about steering or pedaling. It's just comes second nature, you don't even care about that sort of stuff. And so is that how it works? It's just all relative, you were at 4 presses and you had stresses, but now all of a sudden you're at, where you're at now. And it's it's whatever, you're not even thinking about some of that stuff.
What's one more press? What's another?
Exactly. Yeah. And I guess this is just the world that I live in. I've been doing this for a long time, and it's just the world of the stress of screen printing, right? It's fast paced and it's demanding, and it's just what I know. I don't really know that I really don't know that I would say any one part was more difficult or more stressful or more more, better or worse or whatever. It's just kind of all been part of the journey, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
I guess the point I was trying to make is that your stress level is maybe not any greater than mine. In fact, it could be less just because you're used to all of it by now. And it's the same, whatever, it's not necessarily times whatever 10 that you're, of mine, just because you're scaled it. Maybe it's just the same, or maybe it's less. Maybe you have proper people in place and you're like chilling all day. I don't know.
Nah, I think it's just different. I mean, it's just different things that you worry about. I'm not necessarily worried about the things happening on press, right, at this time, like very specific things, but I got to worry about everything else, like with the business and the people and benefits and compliance and tax stuff and city requirements. I mean, all the other things that are constantly going on. I mean, we had sprinkler inspection this morning, and I got more of that kind of stuff. I mean, it's like every day there's something like that going on. And again, there's other people involved. It's not just me doing all of this, but it's still the things that as the owner, I got to make sure it goes right. I got to make sure that everything's done correctly and tracked right and everything.
I had a fire inspection and I failed on 2 exit lights, or not the actual exits, but the emergency lights. I failed. So I had the same freaking inspection, although you were a sprinkler. So I think we have similar stresses, and this leads
you guys are basically twins. I don't understand what you guys are saying.
I think business owners are just stressed. I mean, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. I mean, I think anybody who's trying to run a business and doing it successfully, they're going to be stressed out, probably more than they'd like. But I think for me, that's sort of what drives me.
I got a couple stressful questions to ask you. So one other thing I was curious about is like with the contract stuff, and I definitely don't want to talk about customers that are getting into the weeds of that, but like how much play do you have, or how much pushback do you have with your customers to say this price sucks, or you're constantly competing with other contract shops of like, well, I'll do this for 35 cents and the other guy will do it for 34 cents. And it's like, how do you have say with a lot of this stuff? You're like, I'm not doing your price sheet. This is my price sheet. Deal with it, or we won't work with you or whatever. Because then you're like, again, you're like, well, I have 130 miles to feed. Like, you just keep taking and taking to try to fight that, or?
No, it's tough. And I guess I would say that you got to hold your pricing if it's what's necessary for you. I would rather make sure, even if for some reason we need to scale back because there was competition that was just beating us every time. I've been doing this long enough that I've seen plenty of companies come and go, and it's just something that you see poor decisions because, again, barrier entry is so low, right? Barrier entry is low. A lot of people start doing this and they might not really know how to run businesses, and that it drives me crazy when I'm sitting here trying to get a job and I know what it's going to cost and someone's bidding against it. And I know they're going to a point where they're not making any money. And it might be dangerous for them.
They'll run for 2 years and then go under because they can't sustain.
Maybe, and maybe not, it's sometimes the good with the bad type thing. I try not to follow that suit where we're going to really do really good with these customers, but not so good with these. I don't think that's really fair for anyone. So we really don't. We make exceptions based on volume, really, and the ease of work too. Some customers are just so much easier to work with for all kinds of reasons, and that can be a reason where, someone comes at me and wants to negotiate lower pricing, and then they are just smooth. Like their POs are always correct. They never mess up their stock. They pay on time. Their communication is good. They do photo approvals and get back to us in 1 minute. All of that stuff really, if you're trying to impress your contract decorator, get that stuff in line, because when your stock shows up with we will receive 800 boxes in a day. And if your PO number isn't indicated when you check out from SNS, right, or wherever, we don't know what to do with it. It just goes into the abyss until we figure out. Really, sometimes it's still a customer contacts us and says, hey, did you get this? And then we look and we're like, oh yeah, okay, we got it. We didn't even know we were supposed to get it because you didn't tell us. So things like that really can help to allow for better price negotiations from our customers' standpoint. But overall, but that's what we're here to fix those problems though anyway. And most of our customers are really good with it. We do, I guess, what we call like print only pricing for like non-actual distributors or like non-ASI or whatever, people that are really just like coming in with a bag of shirts that they got from Walmart. We'll still print those, but that's obviously not going to necessarily be the same price that
Yeah.
our daily customers
for
get.
your
And
for
it's
what you're
because we know
speaking
it's going to be
to.
more difficult. There's going to be more front end and back end work around it. So not necessarily our margins are much better. We just know when it's going to take more time to get a job done.
Yeah, we have so we're mostly just direct. Our customer is mostly just direct, but we do have some contract work. And for the very reason you're talking about, we had two different contract pricings. We had just the standard and preferred. And so if you have your shit together, basically, and like you said, you're great when you send your boxes, the POs on and all that kind of stuff, well, then you're on the preferred pricing and it's a little bit better. And if you don't have your shit together, well, then you're on the more expensive pricing. And they don't really know it. And sometimes I tell them like, hey, if you do these things, I can get you on some preferred pricing. And they're like, that motivates them or incentivizes them to do it.
Yep. Yeah, we do the same thing. If we have somebody that's asking for better pricing, in that case, it's rare because these are usually really small, like local, like clothing brands and things like that. They're really just trying to get started and figure it out. And we'll try to coach them and just be like, this is the world you should learn about how to write a PO, learn how to order better from the vendors, learn about the vendors. You don't have to go to Walmart to buy your shirts, things like that we're here to help anybody for any reason. So if we can coach anybody to get better at what they're doing, we want to do that.
I was going to say there are some companies that basically they have their own custom built CRM or whatever, where they're like, log in and this is this and whatever. But then it's like one does it way different than the other. Or one might not even have like a printable packing slip. And it's like, why the fuck don't you have this? Like, this would be a lot better if you had this. Do you have play with that with certain customers where you're like, this one does it really well, you should try to do what they're doing? Like, do you ever do that?
Well, I can't like talk about one customer to another customer, but we can tell them the things that we see that work well. Like having our customers to have portals that have whatever they want to do with their box requirements, things like that. That's always great to see. We've played around with developing our own systems for that, but have found that the problem really is that a lot of customers have their own way of doing it. Trying to get a contract customer to fit into a box of how to submit orders and how to create packing lists and all that. I would love to do it. We've just never, I don't know. I just don't get enough feedback from people when I talk to them about that they would really want that. They just kind of want to send the PO and do it the way they've been doing it because that's how their system's designed. Now, I think with that said, I think what big push I'm trying to always work on here, but especially recently, is just integration of other technologies and things like that. How can we potentially find those customers and integrate our systems with theirs to make everything work better, really for us, it kind of in the end for them as well, but nothing's going to drastically change on their end. I think that's important as you're looking at tech advancements and things like that. Just expecting your normal contract customers to now you're just going to send them an email and say, here, enter all of your PO information into this form. They're not going to want to do that because it's just not the way they do it.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this a couple of times on the show, but I feel like for a long time, the industry was all just kind of stagnant and we print t-shirts. Like, oh, you want to do foil? Foil got popular, oversized got popular, or, puff got popular or whatever. Those are super small changes where you're just kind of buying a specialty ink or you're buying a thing, you're adding a heat press or whatever. But I feel like over the last, 5-6 years, it's been such a hard change with all the digital stuff coming in, and then digital changes every year, and there's all this other stuff and DTF and different things coming into play now. I know you were saying you're getting all these customers that come to you with a challenge and you're like, how do I adapt? Or I want to say yes to this. What have you changed over the past couple of years to add to the shop?
Sure. So keep going on my story here, I suppose. So 2015, we officially moved into the building that we're in now. Added screen printing equipment within or pretty much right away is when I got into DTG printing. So 2015, added some DTG machines. We had a couple Corneats, had 3 Corneats at the end of us using Corneat.
Did you really want to get into that, or was it a customer demand?
I think it was still that kind of it was a customer demand, but it was also that I don't want to say no. And I realized that was going to open up more doors for us to be able to take on the lower quantity orders with high color count, faster turnarounds, things like that. And just my drive again with equipment and wanting to have as much equipment as I can get my hands on and learn about it. And that was a whole new world of apparel decoration that I just wasn't familiar with. And that bothered me. So got into digital printing then, and then the building directly across the street from us, which is a 75,000 square foot building. I knew the people that owned that building. They actually used to be oddly enough, the t-shirt shop that I talked about, that where some of the employees started coming over as they were cutting back hours. That was actually their building. So it just kind of all worked out that way. That building, then I knew the owners and said, like, I know you guys probably want to get out of this. You want to sell the building. So I talked them into selling it to me. Now this is partly done because I bought the building that we're in now, and I had our old building still. And when I sold that building, if you sell a building, you can roll it into another building, do a 1031 conversion, avoid a bunch of taxes and things like that. It's kind of how strip malls are formed, and a lot more than that. But anyway, so that was my time span had been too long that when I sold the building, that the 25,000 square foot building, which I did pretty well on, I needed to do something with it. And that's why I talked them into selling me that building, and then converted that sale into that one. And then that building, I just had tenants in there initially, just like customers, or like a tenant that was just like doing like corrugated, like cardboard box distribution or whatever. I really wanted that building because they had maybe like 12 autos set up in there at one point, maybe more.
Well, they already have the power. They already have the plumbing. The power was there.
The core drops were still there. The air lines were still there. The dryer vents. I mean, all these things that I realized this is like $1 million infrastructural, like screen print build out that's right there. Like I couldn't pass that up.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my thought, was that we were going to use that for screen print. But then in 2018, we ended up turning that into where we do all our print on demand DTG production. So about half of that building I have leased out for another thing that I'm involved with, totally unrelated to apparel. But then the other half of the building, which is about 35,000 square feet, about 15 of that is the print, all of our DTG printers. We also do on-demand embroidery there. And then we have inventory on the other half of the building. So got into that I had the experience with DTG printing, but getting into like true print on demand fulfillment happened about 2018, 19, really got it up and running in 2019. 2020 happens, and then, crazy stuff all around. But having that going at that point did end up being beneficial, just because print on demand, e-commerce fulfillment, things like that really took off big time in 2020 and 2021. So
what do you mean by true fulfillment? What are you doing?
True as in like really one-off. So not, we run into that sometimes with customers that'll say that they're doing print on demand somewhere, but what they're doing is they're doing it with us on a bulk side. Like they're sending a PO to us for 24 pieces. We print the 24 pieces. They're doing like a campaign, like batch, like they're going to run something for a couple days or a week. Then they're going to take it back and then do individual fulfillment, which we also have done for customers as well on like a bulk screen print or embroidery side. But when I say like true print on demand, I guess that's just the way that I talk about it, when it really is like one order flows through, gets produced, ships out. Everything gets barcoded. Even if you place an order for 25 the same shirt, they're all going to happen separately. They're not. Are
you doing that like an Amazon kind of thing, where like an order comes in, it says I like hot dogs, and then you print it and ship it out? Yeah, that kind of thing. We have different. It's still like kind of living in the contract world. These aren't our storefronts or anything like that. These are our customers that have the storefronts, so they're all integrated. There's API connections between their stores and our workflow system that allows for them to have the sale that they can push right into us, and then we produce and ship it out. Okay. So, just kind of. So I guess back to that question though, with everything evolving so much and you investing so hard into how many DTG machines did you end up getting? We have like 33, I think, right now. So to me is scary because that shit evolves so fast. Yes, it is. So like, what do you see with that? Do you just see like a bunch of dinosaurs now, or are you like? There. So like I said, I started out with Corny. Nothing against Corny. Corny does make a really nice machine, but the capital cost on them is kind of outrageous for what the actual output is. That was a problem that I always had with them. And you see like very like Amazon, like very large manufacturers are, I think they're maybe, who knows, but large manufacturers, it does work well. They're very nice machines in that they're all in one, right? They have the pre-treat in with the print. That's their claim to fame. It makes sense why these really, for all intents and purposes, are tech companies that are getting into print on demand. Makes sense why a solution like that makes sense. I didn't really like Corny as much for the purpose of print on demand because they're kind of temperamental, at least from my experience. Just they seem a little temperamental, and they work better more as like a bulk thing. Like if you were going to run like 12 to 20 to 40 pieces or whatever, it kind of made sense. But for doing like a true one-off print on demand solution, and the capital cost because of what you just mentioned, how fast things turn in the industry. Yeah. I think the lower cost solutions made sense to me. So, and at first they didn't. I was in
kind of the realm of like, no, I need a Core i8. We tried Aeon for a while, both again, very awesome machines. But I just couldn't get around. If we're going to try to get to this output level, my capital cost is really significant. And looking at like an Epson or a Brother, or really those are probably the only two I would suggest in that world, your capital cost is going to be so much less for what you're going to get on output in a volume of shirts. And if you're looking at it like a little more disposable, and we don't look at them that way. We've had machines for years now and they're fine. But I think that, like you mentioned, it's risky to invest in something that's going to evolve so quickly. So that's why I liked that concept more than going with, you know, an $800,000 machine that's still
like
probably going to get maybe. Well, Polaris is a little bit different, I think, because I see Polaris as being currently, I see Polaris as being more of kind of like a short run or even a mid run volume for like bulk orders, not necessarily print on demand. I still feel like it's kind of overkill, but I mean, obviously I like M&R a lot. I'm very interested in that press. We don't have one yet, but
the thing that sold it for me, and I don't know how much I'm supposed to say about this, but I don't think it's weird or whatever, but like visiting certain shops that invested in the Polaris and asking them like, why, like, why did you get this over what you were currently doing or whatever? And it was like, okay, well, say you're in a market that you have to do a ton of sampling for. And to me, the true print on demand thing kind of makes sense for this, where they're like, okay, I've got to do X thousands amount of samples for all of my clients for this year of all the new designs of everything we're going to do. And they're like, well, we would have to set up, say this design's a 4-color, you know, we'd set up 4-color screens. We'd print 5 samples or whatever we had to print for this. And then we'd have to tear it down and then do the next job and the next job. Well, the Polaris turned into, okay, well, now we have a design that's built into our back end in the system where I have a stack of shirts, you know, 200 high. They're all different blanks, different colors, different whatever. The next shirt would come up, they'd scan the barcode and the machine would load that print. They'd load the shirt, boom. They just keep loading. Mm-hmm. Like every shirt's different, every design's different, the variable data, everything. And then it's just like, all right, cool. Well, now you're basically like a screen printer loading a stack of random shirts. The only difference is you have a scanner and you're scanning the barcode of every shirt. And then I was like, holy shit, this makes way more sense now. Like you're thinking about it I was thinking about it from like production of like, oh, I want to get this instead of running a Gauntlet 3. It's like, no, dude, this is like a fast-paced way to do a bunch of smaller high color count stuff. Yeah. And you're just cranking.
That is, I think, the future of DTG. So we do have, we're very close with Brother and we work directly with them. So we got all our Brother GTXs or GTX Pro Bs, but then we also have their newest thing, the digital line. I don't know if you've seen that thing yet, but that's basically, it's similar to a Polaris. It's an all-in-one system. So it one operator, you load it pre-treats, it heat presses, it prints. It also does the final cure. So that was, it's a really badass machine. And that does have the capital cost that gets up there similar to a Polaris or an Atlas or something like that. So when I got into it, I was more into the capital cost constraints of getting, just the smaller machines made sense. But I think, really where I really kind of pivoted my thinking on that was during COVID when labor got tricky and reliable labor, and DTG is kind of just a different volume mindset than you're still thinking volume, but it's different than screen print, and having fewer employees to be able to get the same output really became more important during that time. So the machine that we have now, we can do what would normally take about 4 to maybe even 5 people in some cases. Now 1 person can do. Capital cost of the machine is quite a bit more, but that is more beneficial when I need people to actually be here to run the jobs to get everything completed. So I see that moving, like the Polaris, Rock Now, Oval Jet, Brother Digital Line, all that stuff I think is going to be more prevalent and make more sense, especially in like the larger high volume DTG space. Now you mentioned doing samples on DTG. That's something like we don't sample on DTG unless the customer clearly understands that if this is for something that will go screen print, like if you think this is going to be a screen print job at some point, do it screen print, because the expectations can be wildly off. But yeah, I think all of those, that concept of having the single machine that can, have an operator that can get 150, 200 plus an hour out digitally just by scanning and loading variable data like that. I think that's kind of the future of DTG, especially for print on demand DTG.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
do
it's like
think
you said,
something
if
like
you
a
can get rid of,
Polaris-
if you can get rid of 10 employees that are making, 15, $20 an hour with benefits down to one
Yeah.
guy, then that
Yeah.
$800,000 price tag doesn't sound as scary.
Yeah, and reliability. I think the pre-treat online with the print is a better way to do it in the dry pre-treat, the way that like a Polaris or the brother is doing it. There's definitely advantages, a lot of advantages doing it that way. I really like our machine because it has the cure built into it. So this machine shirt comes off ready to go in the bag. There's no additional dryer that has to go down. It also allows, if there's a back print, our system will just tell the operator, flip it over, put it back on. It's
That's
already
awesome.
loaded. They just put it on, it goes around, prints the back, comes off, ready to go.
That's really sweet.
It's pretty cool.
So I guess to follow up with that question, what is next for Redwall in general? Like with every department, everything, like what are you seeing as the next couple of years advancement?
I mean, I would just, so hard to say, right? I mean, I've always kind of just taken it, as the need comes up and we need to do something, but we're in a good spot as far as being able to get a lot
Well,
of
it seems like you grew really fast. So, I mean, you gotta.
Yeah. I mean, it is, but it's still like, I mean, I've been doing it for over 20. It's probably been about 10 years of like kind of extended growth that really got to where we are now, but it all kind of adds up to the next piece. So I guess what's next is probably just improving systems, just improving our own internal systems, greater efficiencies, keeping an eye on technology and utilizing it anywhere that we can to create more efficiency. Just probably diversifying to other customer needs, like more like inventory management type stuff that the contract world doesn't do a lot of, but because of our kind of hybrid between the DTG and between screen, we are seeing more larger customers that are interested in like, well, can I house blanks with you, or can I house finished goods with you? And I really want to turn into a 3PL, but I could see more of that becoming necessary.
More and more buildings at that point.
Really, yeah. I mean, it is. I'm always working on that kind of stuff too. So, I would say that's just continued expansion where it makes sense, but really just, I think just that kind of stuff, I think is kind of where we're going to go.
Okay. Andy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I've got a couple over here. Well, one, I have a hypothetical. If you want to, this is for both of you, actually.
I like this
for
new
all of
segment
us.
of the show where we're just doing hypotheticals.
Yeah. So we all can chime in if we want, but so here, the first hypothetical: given the option to start over, knowing everything that you know now in today's economy, could you start over, and would you?
I think it's, from my 17-year-old mindset getting into it, totally, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't care. Like, I mean, I got through, the Great Recession pretty unscathed because I wasn't really paying attention to it,
Yeah.
and I think that somebody younger getting into it and having that kind of just DIY go-getter attitude, they're going to kind of be in their own bubble, sort of. I mean, I think that the way that I did it absolutely could be done today. I don't think that's.
Yeah, but you're going
really a
back to your
question.
17-year-old body with the knowledge you have right now.
Would I do it? So are you saying, would I do anything different, or? Sure. Yeah.
Would you do it
different.
Would you do it all over again? Like knowing what you know now, like, would you do it all over again?
I guess the answer to that question is
sure.
if you could go back to your 17-year-old body with the knowledge you have now, you would do things differently. But what would your shop look like in 2023 if you had the knowledge at 17 to where you are now? Like, do you have 130 employees, or are you just like, I have this mega machine in the middle of the room?
Oh yeah.
I have 2 dudes and I go to the beach every weekend. Like,
no, I think it'd be the same drive. And I think that, no, I think I'd be doing the same thing. I just think I would have done it more strategically. And if anything, it'd probably be bigger, really. I think I would have taken more advantage of, now knowing how important just the online sales were going to end up being, and just like the tech involved with that would probably be something that I would have tried to grab onto sooner. Because when I got into this, there wasn't like a place to go online and order a t-shirt. That didn't really, I don't think that existed at all yet. So it was like just kind of happening. And I know kind of early on, I did have a friend of mine he was the guy that was printing for me, and he's a computer engineer now. And there was times that we were like, we should try doing these things, and we never did them. And then a couple of years later, I would see these big companies doing these things. I'm like, damn, why didn't we do this?
So are you saying you would have invented custom ink?
I'm not saying that, but sure. But like, I think just that mass like consumer appeal that the internet really allowed in our industry and in all industries, but trying to be on kind of the forefront of that. Yeah, I think if that's something that makes sense now, I mean, this is for anything, right? Of course, everyone goes, "Oh yeah, the internet. Wish I would have known about that." So
well, it's the other part of that too.
Lame answer, I guess, but yeah.
You take that question and you're like, oh, I go back in time and I did Amazon first. It's like, well, you would have done it totally different than Jeff Bezos did it, and you would not be in the same. It wouldn't be the same thing. Like
right on, yeah.
All these different things happened to him to get him to where he is now. It's not like you would just be like, oh, I'm just gonna create this company like Amazon and be like.
And also, I would say that if you take the blueprint of what built ShirtCon, and you just hit restart right now, today, April, whatever it is, I think it's potentially could fail, because what we did to grow to where we are now isn't the exact blueprint we'd never use that again. You know what I mean? Because everything's so different than it was in 2009 when we started. So I don't know. I mean, some things are similar. I'm not saying that you couldn't use some of that stuff and some of those lessons that I learned and good decisions that I made.
I agree. I don't think.
Let's go deep, guys. Let's start talking about parallel universes and time and all that shit. Let's do it.
Because I agree. I don't think that I would want to know. I think I would do things differently because of knowing that, and it would get messed up. It wouldn't work because you're trying to reproduce something that you didn't even know was going to exist. So
I would have to force so many bad ideas in order to get it to where it is.
Yeah, really, because a lot of things you do, you just do on a whim, and you're not. I mean, you think about it, but I don't know. Yeah,
it's different. Do you have another one?
I have something that's feel like it's.
You know what you haven't done in a while, and I kind of missed was an AI generated question.
We need to bring that.
You need to do more of those.
I don't.
Yeah, we did a couple, and they were fun.
I like that.
I don't have one of those this week, but I was thinking that maybe the theme of this show or this episode is that our take our personalities and take our us as our roles out of this shop and look at our shops as its own entity, its own thing. And is it right to say that it's the responsibility of that business to grow that business? Like, it should be always growing. Because I keep hearing Jeff say these things, and I'm always like, for me, I've resisted growth for a lot of reasons. And I don't know that that's right. I think maybe I'm wrong. I mean, listening to you, I'm like, well, because we have people call here all the time and they're like, hey, we're looking for a new contract, printer in your area. I was like, I always say no, we're not taking on. Not always, but a lot of times I say no to opportunity, because I'm like, I'm really happy with where we are. We're at capacity. I just don't want that. But that's me and my personality probably doing the wrong thing in a sense, for the separately, because if I take myself out of what a business is supposed to do, I think a business is supposed to grow. Honestly, always be growing. ABG.
ABG.
I mean, yeah, like isn't that responsibility to grow your business, and maybe like you have it right and I've got it wrong. Like, what the fuck am I doing? I feel like
it's different. Growing. It's different strokes for different folks. It's it's what you want to make it.
Separate me from it though. Like that, because I think that's important, because I'm an employee. Like technically, I have a salary here, and then I own a draw, of course, at the end of the year. But what I'm saying is like, I'm separate. I should be anyway. I should look at myself as separate from this place. This place should exist on its own. And shouldn't it be always growing? Why wouldn't it?
It depends on you, man. They can't all be bangers.
But that's what I'm saying, is like, it doesn't depend on me. It should just be this business. I
feel like Jeff, we don't know each other that well, but I'm just saying, I feel like you're the kind of guy where it seems like you like the challenge of multiple buildings, multiple things, and you like to think about it. I want to think about, we print some rad shit today, but I'm more thinking about like, I'm going to make this cool thing for dinner, and I'm probably going to play video games with my friends from the shop at 5:00. Like, to me, I want to just do what we're doing for the amount of people that are here, and then I want to chill afterwards. I don't know if I want to do, I got to think about how I'm going to expand into this crazy new technology to keep up with the Joneses. You know what I mean? Like, not there's definitely nothing wrong with that. It's awesome. But I feel like it's different strokes for different folks. Like, you just do what you want to do. I don't think you're doing it wrong. Like, you're happy. Like, it's not like you're fucking poor. Like,
no, and I'm not saying.
Yeah, I mean,
that
I agree. Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff. What were you saying?
No, I was just saying, I totally right. And again, not just in our industry, but look at any business. You see businesses that can be very content. You got small businesses like a restaurant or something that's been in business for 40 years doing exactly the same thing, and they're super happy and excited about what they're doing. But then you have other, like a restaurant that wants to start a whole chain and go out and franchise and grow and do whatever. I think it's really just like what people want to do. And it's going to be the management or the owners that are going to kind of make that decision. I will say that from my experience, expansion and growth and new equipment and all that does motivate employees. And usually people are pretty excited when they see that growth and they see a new thing that, especially like art department, they see a new piece of equipment and they're like, wow, now I don't have to worry about, or now I have the option to have a digital squeegee in the lineup of our arsenal. People do like that. And I think that helps to motivate, but there are definitely, it makes sense to not want to keep changing and just be,
if you,
I think you had the perfect
I like
analogy.
that. I'm envious of I do see that sometimes when people are just content, like that restaurant's been in business forever and they're just doing their thing.
It's like a hole in the wall,
totally
like off the beaten path. And they're like well known for doing like, they're like the best restaurant in town. And there's like 3 stools.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
as long as so I don't know, but yeah.
However, if you were to play a sim game, like simulation,
that's a different world. That's a different
No. So you're going to play a simulation sim screen printing. Let's say there was a game out there called Sim Print Shop. You would fucking lose if you're not like growing, like wouldn't that'd be kind of a cool game. We need to
that would be cool.
But you would, the goal of that game would be to grow to be a monopoly or like the biggest screen print shop in the whole universe.
Yeah, but you can shut that game off after 4 hours.
Strikes and all kinds of things could happen, and you have to rebuild. And
I had the first SimCity. I remember playing that at my dad's house, like sitting on his mattress, playing that in our shit computer.
Well, it is just a game. Like it is. I know it's real life here, but it's a game, and I should probably be trying to be the biggest. I should be bigger than you, Jeff. That's my next thing. Is that coming for you? No, just kidding.
So I hope Jeff puts you out of business. That would be my favorite thing of this whole thing. You're like, you know what? I'm going to put it all in. I'm going to grow. I'm going to do this whole thing. And then in 4 years, we're going to hear about how Redwall bought Shirt Kong and it's fucking his next expansion.
And he just closes it down. He's like, that place is a shithole. I have. So here's a question. I love one of the show note questions that Christina asked you. And it was, what are you most proud of?
Okay. Most proud. Yeah. I would say I'm most proud of just the ability that our shop has based on the people that are here. Kind of like what we talked about earlier on about the different departments that can make the call to make changes on press or in the ink room or whatever, or even the salespeople that just know how to react to certain customer needs or whatever. Just having that whole infrastructure. I mean, the facility and all that, I'm proud of that as well. But I think, it's nothing without the people that are here running it, and just having just the amount of experience that we have behind what we do and the amount of just knowledge of how to print shirts. I'm just very proud of that. I mean, I think that of anything, when I look, that's the thing that I guess gets me sometimes, where I can feel so comfortable that a customer will call up and say, I need this ridiculous request. And we can just be like, yep, do it, send it over. Right. And confidently do it. Whereas through all the kind of like stages of growth, it'd be like, oh man, how are we going to get this done? What are we going to blow up and get this done by Friday? How are we going to, we got to go out and order some new screens or whatever to meet this need. And just having that kind of like both infrastructure, but also the people that know how to get it done. That's awesome.
Yeah,
for me.
That's pretty great. Yeah. The Lemick Print Shop says, what plateaus did you hit while scaling and how did you overcome them? Were they calculated decisions made at each plateau or were some made on gut decisions? We talked about the calculated risk stuff. But did you have any specific plateaus as you were growing that you had to overcome?
It was the probably the buildings, the amount of space that we had, just not having the room to meet the needs for stock coming in, or just presses or employees, not having like a dedicated employee break room that I felt good about, things like that. And it was really just kind of like just the infrastructure driven of not having a building that could sustain it. So, and that's probably the biggest, moving sucks, and moving a print facility is difficult, and just all the setup and the costs involved and the time and the concerns of how are you going to manage that. I mean, when we moved into this building, it was like a 6-month run up plan of actually more. It's probably like 8 months of facility. First of all, getting the building, it was tricky for me to buy a building of this size, and getting that done, and then getting the whole, just everything laid out, built, and paid for all of it and everything. I mean, that was a big challenge. And then the plateau would have been the previous building, where I couldn't meet the demand of the needs that I was trying to meet or trying to overcome. So every time I've thought about moving, it's because it's just like, I'm stuck. Like, what am I going to do? I don't have the room. I can't keep going. So at the level that I wanted to.
The Real Hawkeye Inc. says, was there a specific contract customer that forced you to level up more so than others? There's been times where there's been big ones that have come in and gotten to the point where they're like, hey, we want to keep pushing you, or like, I want them to keep pushing me. I don't want to say no. So if I can keep bringing things in, not necessarily like, it's kind of like, if I'm going to keep sustaining for this customer or for these group of customers, and I want to keep growing, I got to expand just to like bring on new customers. I don't want to just stop. Right. And because I see that as an unhealthy spot too, if you're a contractor or really any shop, but if you're relying on only a small handful of customers and something happened to those customers, we all know that can be a disaster. So that's been, if I do have a customer with a lot of demand, it's even more push to grow elsewhere, because I don't want to be locked in with that one customer being a significant part of the business. So that was going to be a side question on that for me, was like, how much of a risk do you take with a certain customer? They come in promising X amount of jobs, and you buy 3 autos and hire, 10 employees to fit the need for them, and then they bail. Like, what do you do?
I think there's a level where that makes sense. And I think that if they do bail, it's going to suck for a while, but you're going to find other things to fill it up with. And as long as you keep moving, it could end up being great in the end, because that was what pushed you to have that growth, and ended up diversifying your customer base in the long run. You got to be careful with it, but I think it's not like it's completely not going to work out if you do put too many of your eggs in the basket. Hopefully you figure it out.
You just got to find a way to pivot.
Yeah.
Eric at Night Owl says, what software are you using to manage jobs in specific departments?
We use Shopworks.
Have you used Shopworks the whole time, or have you?
No. Before we started using Shopworks maybe about like 5-ish years ago now, or something like that. Before that, we used QuickBooks and just a nasty combination of spreadsheets and emails and shared docs and stuff like that, which we still use some. We still use that stuff for like certain customer needs, and just makes sense to be able to share back with customers. But overall, I like Shopworks. We looked at a lot of options. Obviously, like Printavo would be awesome. I mean, we looked really closely into that. I know Bruce, well enough to know that it's an awesome program and everything. But it didn't really have like I shouldn't say just, not so much just that, but Shopworks has kind of the infrastructure for large contract tracking and stuff like that. So really nothing against anybody else's systems, and Shopworks does have its downfalls, but that's what we use, and overall we're happy with it.
Okay. Hanson Screen Printing says, hey neighbor, would love to stop by and visit sometime. His question, we already kind of went through. It just says, most of our heads exploded at the thought of having 17 autos. How have you built your business to such a massive scale, and, going through that whole thing? His last question, though, which is very important, says, on a side note, will we ever see a Spitalfield reunion tour?
Yeah, it's actually happening this summer.
Yeah, you're doing like a festival or something, right?
I'm not doing it. Yeah, I'm not doing it just because I can't be away. I got another baby coming along here at the end of the month, or at the end of May. So I'm not doing the tour, but they actually just got off a tour with Armor for Sleep in Hawthorne Heights. And then they're going to do kind of like a bunch of different weekends and fests. I think there's about 40 dates still coming up.
When did you step out of that?
So it's happening. Like right kind of the band broke up in like 2008-ish, and that was when I stopped doing it. So
I'm pretty sure I saw you in Rochester at one point.
I was in the band from like 2006, 7, or 5. I think like 6 to 8 or something like that. So
I'll have to look back
kind of
and
at
see
the
if I
end
can
of
figure it out.
Yeah, we toured a lot back then. So
Uh,
who was that? Who was that from?
that was from Hanson Screen Printing.
Okay, where are they? You said neighbor.
Andy,
I want to
do you remember
say
Hanson is exactly? I could look
I want to
right
say
now.
he's in Milwaukee. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really?
Or
It's
close.
324. I don't want to give his exact address on the show.
Yeah. Well, call
North Wisconsin
email,
Street
come
in
visit.
Elkhorn, Wisconsin.
Okay, yeah, that's not far. Well, send an email. You can come stop by. That'd be cool.
Ron at Talk Shirty says, Hot Market Printing, how do you handle a 9,000 impression job with a 2-day turnaround?
Well, 9,000. We'll do like 90,000 in a day. But yeah, I mean, Hot Market's great. I love it. It's stressful, which I like, but it's also really just like, how do you handle it? You just got to have like all hands on deck, ready to go. You prepare well. You got to have, it's not just the 3 people working a press. You're going to have people packaging, stickering, and labeling. If you factor like what you have in a press, and you need to at least double that to keep up with Hot Market.
If you're doing that often, do you have specific people that they know when this kind of job comes in, you're not working a different department and they're helping out on press?
It's kind of just known. We even have it in our like orientation when employees are hired, that we do have these circumstances where we do a lot of printing that involves Hot Market, but like a really high demand true Hot Market is going to be local. That's really when you see high volume. It's going to be, see what the Bucks do, but like if the Bucks were to win or something like that, that would be, right. We would probably see, I think last time they won, we did about 140,000 shirts in like 2 days or 2.5 days or so. And it really is just, everybody just has to be kind of ready, just ready to do it. It's gonna be longer hours. We'll take off some days around it or whatever. But it is fun. I mean, I do love it, just to seeing like having all of your presses just running at like maximum speed, like all day. It's fun. Like I just walk around just.
It's different for you than some other shops, because some other shops might take those on. And we talked about this before, where it's more of like a bragging right of saying you did X and so shirts for the Super Bowl, whatever. If contract printing at that scale is just your day-to-day business, are you taking it on for the financial gain at that point? Because is it worth it still?
It's a big hit. When you can run that many shirts we'll probably print. I mean, it depends on the day and the volume of orders or whatever, but a normal day could be somewhere between 20 and 40,000 impressions. And if you can do 100,000 impressions in one day, Hot Market generally in the contract world is going to pay more because it's geared towards that stress level, that requirement. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's very demanding. You cannot mess it up because there's going to be serious ramifications if you've got trucks lined up to go to retailers and you don't have your stuff ready. So it's not for everyone. And I think if you're not in that space, if you're just used to doing like full package direct stuff and you're not in the contract world, yeah, we're ready for it. We know how to do it. We've been doing it for years. It's part of what we do all the time. But I hear horror stories of companies, smaller print shops trying to do it and just totally going off the rails, and they just cannot meet the ship deadline. So not that it can't be done. It just takes a lot of planning, and you got to really know what you're doing. Even just things like you got to shoot another set of like at least multiple sets of all the screens involved. Because if the screen pops, you don't have time to go get another screenshot. You got to get that thing out and get a new one in as quickly as you can. So yeah.
Christina Gibbons says, what is the riskiest step you've taken that has worked out with the best result?
Again, I go back to the buildings, just making those leaps of taking on, buying bigger buildings. Again, the building we're in right now is about 100,000 square feet. That was a big risk in my thought. I did have times before I did that where I was thinking, and again, before we were like 25,000 square feet at 6 Autos, it was like comfortable. It was a good layout. It wasn't going to allow for the continued growth I wanted, but I did have thoughts of like, we could just kind of like settle here and be in a good spot. But I wanted to keep driving it and making that commitment to like, okay, we're doing this and getting the bigger building and just going full steam ahead on it. That was probably I think getting into this building is where I felt the biggest kind of like stomach upset. Like, what if this doesn't work?
Right.
You
It's a
know?
big deal.
So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Last question. Press Time Design says, how do you stay at full capacity with that much production to feed? Do the jobs come on their own, or do you look for them, or both? We didn't kind of touch on that. I know you said that like you have certain clients, but like, do you have people looking for more contract clients?
Yeah, we have sales. We have a sales team. It's always out looking for more. I mean, I'm personally always looking for more pivots to the right customers or whatever, or getting more from our existing customer base, making sure they're aware of all the different things we do. It kind of blows me away sometimes when I'll talk to a customer that sends us jobs regularly and then say like, hey, like they'll ask a question like, can you do water-based printing, or do we have to send that somewhere else? And I'm like, what? Like, how do you not know that? Right. And then I realize we're not doing our job because we need to make sure that our customers are educated on what we do so that they can get out there and sell it. So yeah, no, it's not like we're just sitting here and orders are just coming in. I mean, we need to be active in selling and customer satisfaction and educating our customers and all of that. And we're very proactive in that.
We kind of touched on this before, but like, do you have something like that where you have like an offerings? Oh, maybe we didn't talk about this in here. I think maybe I talked about it with Kevin, where one of our strategies with that was just like an offerings PDF or something that anytime we met with a new customer, we said, here's our capabilities. Like, here's everything we can do, so that they know that, I guess.
We do. I'll be honest. I wish it was more robust than it is. But yeah, we do. And that's also something that we're currently working on, just having more like very specific sample packs and things like that are like, here's all the different print techniques. Here's how they're different from each other, what you could use for what reason, things like that.
Well,
so
it kind of goes back to the new technologies and all these new things happening with like digital and all this other stuff. It's like you constantly are going to have to be adding new services or new, we can do this and we do this at this rate. We could do this, but this is a 10-day turn, or this is a 2-day turn, or this is immediate.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Andy, do you have anything to add to that, or are you ready for quick takes?
No, sir. Yes. Ready for quick takes. And I have the first one.
Yep.
So now that I know you a little better, I think I know the answer to this, but this is what I wrote earlier. Would you rather continue printing t-shirts or go back to being on tour?
Printing t-shirts. Is that what you thought I was going to say?
Yes.
Do you?
Okay, good.
Do you like that lifestyle though? Were you the kind of guy that liked being out on the road and doing that thing?
Yeah, I did. It honestly, it gets a little old at times. And I think as, I've got a family now and all that, and there's just no way I couldn't. There's plenty of people out there that tour and have families and make it all work out. But for me, I think that would be pretty tough.
I feel like that was a weird thing for me too. Is like I loved the band and I loved playing, and it was like some of the most, I know we say glory days or whatever, but it was like there was a lot of fun things that happened that just can't happen unless you're in a band and you're playing and doing all this other stuff. But like when it ended and I was like starting a business and doing something else, I was like really relieved that I was like, I don't have to deal with this band drama bullshit anymore. Like, I
feel you. I had the same thoughts. You don't have the drama. Your destiny's more in your own. I mean, in a band, it sort of is, but you're still dealing with bands and just all the stuff. You try. It's
there's just stupid stuff that people don't. Yeah, exactly. There's stupid shit that like a regular goer to a show doesn't think about. Like, this band wants to make sure that they play at this point, or they're a little louder, or they have more lights, or they're allowed to sell this much more merch than you. And then it's like, oh, well, this band has to play here because if this band plays here, then the people are going to leave. And you got to make sure that they're here for this guy. And like, it's all this stuff that you're just like,
so much,
why?
Yes. So much of that shit, which is exactly not, I mean, it's the exact opposite of why I got into it. Exactly. I got into it because I just wanted to play it loud and fast, like it wasn't, it was, And then I appreciate all that stuff, like the business aspect. And I do think if I would have continued to do that, I would have kept pushing in ways that probably would have somehow been successful. But it's stressful in a different way that I started to kind of not like. I like this stress more than I think that would have been. And it just seems like a weird thing to be stressed out about, Yeah.
And it's your alone stress that you created. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, you have to ask your best friend to like, a group of 5 best friends or whatever to be like, oh, let's all agree on this same thing. And it's just,
it'd be like, I mean, it's like going into business with
5
or
business partners.
6 or 8 part.
Yeah, it sucks.
Part B to that question, now that I heard your answer, and Dylan's comment would be, would the answer be the same in say 30 years when your kids are all grown and out and of the house and it's just you and you're like
That's
70
when-
and
dude,
then you
that's
can
when
go
you
back on
start-
tour.
You start a cover band and you play bars on the weekend, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be sleeping on the floor or anything like that when I'm 70. I don't know if I could. I could barely take
You
that.
know,
now,
it would
probably.
be a bougie tour. You know, I would be your tour manager.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I got you. There's no sleeping on floors if I'm handling.
I'm sure. Yeah,
on
at
the
that
affairs.
point. At that point, yeah, let's do it.
We talk about that now, like how fun that would be to just like be a Van Halen cover band and just
Yeah.
like, just like do fun weekend shows or whatever. And you're playing to people just trying to have fun. It's not
That would
like,
be
and
good.
there's nothing serious about it. You're just like, let's just fucking go.
That'd be fun.
You know who does that?
I like. Do you still play in a band at all? Like at any
Mm-mm.
capacity or no?
No, I literally just got asked to, and I was just like, don't think that's for me anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I
I've done
played
that
on and
job.
off, just like, we like jammed and stuff here and there, but like I have the shop, I have a bunch of other commitments, I have the show, like certain things. I'm just like, when would I do it? Like,
Yeah.
practice and shows and going here or going there. It's just like I don't know when it would happen.
And I still like playing. I still play whatever. Just sit around and do that sometimes. Like I've got a 7-year-old son. He's getting into it, so that's fun. That's cool to see.
Yeah, that's cool to see.
So.
Yeah. All right, I guess I have the next question. Most underrated movie.
Oh man, most underrated
movie. Yeah, in your opinion.
I might have to think on that one. That's a.
Well, there's funny, like
take.
there's movies like I love movies. It's like one of my favorite things, but like there's movies that I like where everyone's like, holy shit, why? That's a horrible movie. And I'm like, I just actually love that movie. Like it resonated with me. Is there one like that you're just like?
I have one that I can answer on behalf of something that came up in a conversation with one of our sales reps, which I thought about, and he might be right. But he was very very adamant that The Ladies' Man is the most underrated movie. And I thought about that, and it's not bad. I didn't watch it since this conversation, just a couple of weeks ago. So on behalf of another Redwall employee, I'm going to go with Ladies' Man.
Ladies' Man. Okay, that was not at all what I thought you were going to say. But I mean, I didn't know what you were going to say, but Ladies' Man, I would have ever picked in a million years.
Well, that's because it's underrated.
That's true. It's very underrated and very unknown.
Screen printing or DTG?
No, screen printing.
All day.
Totally.
All day.
Come on now.
Okay,
I mean, same. I like them both, right? I love them both, but screen prints, that's,
right. Well, you were printing. You're not doing DTG now. It's not like you're on the floor loading shirts onto a brother.
Well, I mean, I could be. I just, there's not as much. It's just not this. It's not the
as
same.
sexy.
The machine's doing it for you. You're not the one putting the ink on the shirt. The electronics are.
Good answer.
Yeah.
We would have hung up on you if you said the other one. So, of course, it's like the end of the show, but still.
Right. Favorite day of the week.
Probably. I mean, easy to say Friday, but maybe Thursday.
Thursday.
I think I go. I mean, if I'm gonna pull out a week, I'd probably go Saturday, but I'd probably go Thursday for a weekday.
Why Thursday?
I think it's good to kind of see that the week is wrapped up. You know what you got to get done on Friday to finish everything out. It's like the target is right there. So it kind of feels sweet to move into Friday.
Right. You're already in your flow of routine by Thursday for sure.
Yeah.
I like it. Andy?
Final question. What is for dinner?
I have no idea. I don't know. I'll figure that one out.
I loved that when he asked that, I looked at you and you were completely blank. You were like, I genuinely have no idea what's.
Well, I was like, should I know this? It's probably going to be my duty to figure this out tonight, but
what would you?
I don't know yet. I got to figure that out.
So if you had your choice, what would it be?
Like tacos. I could go for some tacos tonight.
It's a good choice. I think I might I might do a Chipotle run tonight. That's probably not as good as homemade or whatever, but it'll do.
Yeah, I'd probably pick them up too. I'd probably find a place to do that.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Jeff, for doing this with us, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
And it's fun. And if I'm out that way, I'd love to stop by and see the place if you let me in.
Oh yeah, of course. Anytime.
Sweet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we should swing by, grab Hanson, and then the three of us go hang out at Redwall.
Works for me. How far are you from downtown?
Maybe like 10, 15 minutes. We're kind of by the airport. Have you been to Milwaukee?
No.
No? Okay. Yeah,
I just wonder
airport's
if I go to downtown in Milwaukee, like how far away would it take me to get there?
Without traffic, like 15, maybe 20 minutes.
Hey,
so
just
maybe less.
Good enough outside.
Not too far. Yeah.
All right, dude. Well, have fun. Enjoy the rest of your day. And tomorrow's your favorite day.
Yeah.
That's right.
Later, man.
Thank you. Yep,
Right.
take care.
Yeah.